Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Opportunity Project team and the U.S. Census Bureau, welcome to the Opportunity Project Demo Week 2020. I'm Drew Zachary, the director and co-founder of the Opportunity Project and managing director of Census Open Innovation Labs.
And I'm Lorena Molina Irizarry, the director of operations at the Census Open Innovation Labs. I have been involved with the Opportunity Project since the very beginning and have seen firsthand the positive impact it's had in bringing technologists, government, and communities together. We're so thrilled to host you over the next 3 days for the first ever multi-day virtual conference of the Opportunity Project.
The Opportunity Project, or TOP for short, is a technology accelerator and innovation program run by our team at the U.S. Census Bureau. If you've been to one of our in-person demo days in the past, then welcome back. And if you're new to Demo Week, you're in for a treat. In the past, Demo Day has typically been an in-person end-of-year showcase of the work done through TOP each year. Since our sprint process is entirely virtual and always has been, Demo Day was a chance for the open data and government innovation community to come together, reflect, and celebrate the great accomplishments of sprint teams who joined TOP to address challenges of national importance. This year, with the need to convene virtually, we've used this as an opportunity to further expand our community, including a much larger audience and stakeholders who may not have been able to join an in-person demo day even in previous years. And we've expanded the focus of Demo Week to also highlight critical voices, lift up innovation work from the civic tech community, and provide hands-on learning opportunities. For those who are newer to this community, TOP was created 5 years ago to help translate government open data into valuable tools for the public. We do this by bringing together diverse stakeholders from within and outside of government and help them collaborate. During 12-week development cycles called sprints, which you'll hear a lot about today, we walk teams through phases, including user research, data exploration, product development, and product launch. This demo week, we're celebrating the 5-year anniversary of this program and the milestone of catalyzing nearly 150 data-driven digital products that help address critical problems for the public on topics ranging from the opioid crisis to employment, education, and more. All of these tools are built with government open data from the Census Bureau and dozens of other agencies and sources. As stewards of open data and the nation's largest statistical agency, the Census Bureau is proud to have incubated the Opportunity Project and helped make open data more useful to Americans nationwide. You can learn more about us at opportunity.census.gov.
Since its inception, the Opportunity Project has built a nationwide community of thousands of collaborators, including technologists, public servants, students, community leaders, data experts, and more. Demo Week is all about bringing those people together and providing a forum for us to share learnings, progress, results, and to explore possibilities for the future. The mission and values of the Opportunity Project are the key tenets of our community. We believe these values are the foundation of the Opportunity Project's success and will be at the core of each session at Demo Week. Our values include bringing diverse stakeholders together to solve problems, putting government data to work for the American people, employing human-centered design principles, amplifying community voices by building with instead of for end users, and delivering tangible impact through data-driven technology. We're thrilled to share that at Demo Week, we're featuring over 100 speakers reflecting the authentic diversity of our community. You'll hear from students, cabinet secretaries, respective members of tribal communities, technology developers, data users, and many more. We have over 1,000 people registered to attend. And over the course of the 3 days, you'll get a chance to join dozens of sessions to educate, empower, and inspire you. Each day, we'll open up with a recap of what we heard and what's to come, But the event is designed so that you can pop in throughout the week, so whatever sessions interest you the most. The event will include opportunities to listen, network, ask questions, demo new products, and learn. Remember to visit the event website to view the session descriptions and speakers. Most of the event will be live streamed right here via YouTube. And for other sessions, like the hands-on workshops on Friday, you will need to sign up and access the separate link to attend. We'll help you share your thoughts and reactions through the week using #OpportunityProject, and remember to tag us at US Census Bureau. Please also drop your questions for us in YouTube. For some of the sessions, your questions may be answered live. So now let's dive in. And what better way to kick things off than a welcome from US Census Bureau Director, Dr. Stephen Dillingham.
Hello, and welcome to the Census Bureau's Opportunity Project Demonstration Week. I am Steve Dillingham, Director of the U.S. Census Bureau. Thank you for joining our Virtual Innovation Conference this year, our first three-day event. At the Census Bureau, we are proud to be a leader in government innovation, creativity, and use of open data. Over the next 3 days, we will see more than 30 new tools that have been created this year through the Opportunity Project. You also will hear exciting discussions of data and technology. As we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Opportunity Project, I'm reminded that this is a great example of how the Census Bureau and other government agencies are working together with industries and communities to make data more widely available and useful. This work fits into a key element of our mission, which is open data, with a goal of making that data as accessible as possible. During these last 5 years, the Opportunity Project has demonstrated advantages of collaboration between government and the private sector. We awarded a total of $100,000 to 5 teams that competed in making the best use of open data to solve problems for our workforce, healthcare system, and 2020 census. One example is a team in Puerto Rico that helped to solve problems with local address accuracy. Hundreds of people from cities such as Chicago, San Juan, and Washington, D.C. have convened virtually this year to address government problems with better data and analytics. We helped the Department of Commerce with national workforce policy goals. We helped the Department of Housing and Urban Development engage with companies and communities to build digital tools that support Opportunity Zone ecosystems. This year, our theme is focused on how to protect and restore our planet. We are featuring more than 35 new tools, which represent our biggest year yet. This would not have been possible without the contributions from our colleagues across the government. We have more than 400 Sprint participants, from companies like Mapbox and SAS, but also small businesses, students, 12 universities including Georgetown, Harvard, George Mason, and Syracuse, as well as user advocates from tribal communities and nonprofit organizations. The amazing new tools developed by participants are wide-ranging. They enhance our understanding of threats to our oceans and air, address challenges of recycling and better agricultural practices, show how technology, data, and government can better serve tribal communities, help low-income families and refugees to improve economically, and address other critical challenges through the use of federal open data. The Census Bureau is a big part of this success, and we are proud to convene such a wide-ranging audience for these important conversations. We express our gratitude to the teams who are participating, our partners, and all who contribute in using data and technology for society's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that welcome, Director Dillingham. And thank you for creating space for true government innovation through your support of the Opportunity Project. Executive champions like Dr. Dillingham and Deputy Director Ron Jarman, who we'll hear from tomorrow, enables enable us at the Census Open Innovation Labs to drive impact on the Census Bureau through our work. TOP has enabled some major innovations at the Census Bureau. In 2019, we launched the first ever prize competition run by the Census Bureau through the America Competes Act Authority, which allows any member of the public to participate in generating ideas and solutions to national challenge. Prizes are a key pillar of open innovation in government that greatly expand our own capabilities and engagement with the public by allowing anyone to submit ideas, prototypes, designs, methods, or products. In our first top prize challenge in 2019, we awarded a total of $100,000 in prizes to 5 tech teams that exemplified the ethos of the Opportunity Project through creative, well-designed, data-driven products. We're happy to share that the prizes help some of the most promising products to expand their reach. For example, Measure of America, our prize winner in 2020 census category, was able to hire 3 data interns over the summer, supporting the update and maintenance of data for the website data2go.nyc, and helping to educate a future generation of civic-minded data scientists. Another prize winner, City Builder by City Ventures, which helped catalyze investment in America's opportunity zones, used prize funds to expand their platform to additional rural areas and cities, and more investment incentive programs, and conduct outreach efforts to local, state, and federal partners.
This year, throughout Demo Week, we will be showcasing 40 new products created in our Earth-themed tech development sprints. But the story of the Earth sprints reaches back to last Demo Day 2019. Last year, we announced that our 2020 sprints would focus on Earth challenges. Since then, we have brought that vision to life alongside more than 400 participants in our sprints focused on the natural and built environment. In March, we hosted a virtual roundtable where 50 people from over 25 different organizations came together to brainstorm some of the biggest Earth-related issues they were trying to solve. We then turned those ideas into concrete problem statements, which dozens of tech companies, universities, community organizations, and more signed on to help solve. Our collaborators at federal agencies and national advocacy organizations identified key themes and specific challenges related to the natural and the built environment. In our natural environment sprint, which you'll hear about today, we teamed up with the State Department, the Wilson Center, the Department of Agriculture, and the Environmental Protection Agency on 4 unique challenges: understanding transportation emissions and its effects on air quality, reducing ocean plastic pollution, supporting agricultural decision-making with imagery data, and creating markets for recycled materials. In our built environment sprint, which will be the focus of tomorrow, we teamed up with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Environmental Protection Agency, the White House Office of Management and Budget, and USA for UNHCR, the United Nations Refugee Agency, on another 4 challenges. These included helping families to achieve economic self-sufficiency, advancing rural sustainable economic development, tracking the impact of disaster spending, and supporting resettled refugees and their new communities. Over the next 3 days, you'll get to see the results of those sprints through lightning talks and hands-on demos.
This year, we also launched 2 new sprints. We hosted our first all-university cohort with 10 student teams working to develop solutions to these Earth challenges. And we piloted our TopX Toolkit, a brand new resource for federal agencies to leverage the TOP model and facilitation framework, which we're excited to launch tomorrow live here at Demo Week. We're so thankful to our collaborators at the State Department Office of Foreign Assistance, who launched a challenge on reimagining civics education for a new generation to help modernize civic training in secondary schools and equip students with a better understanding of government spending. We've also continued expanding our data curation hub, which now includes a module for curated data sets related to COVID-19. And we partner with the American Statistical Association on their annual Data Challenge Expo, a national contest of an open call for government, industry, academia, and students to analyze data sets using statistical methods and visualization tools. The theme this year is helping families, businesses, and communities respond to COVID-19. Selected data sets include the Census Bureau's American Community Survey data, as well as the recent Pulse surveys, which measure the effect and impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on our population and economy. Check out the Data Focus workshop on Friday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern to learn more about the household and small business Pulse surveys.
Now, before we move on, we'd like to explain a few key roles that participants play in the sprint process that you'll continue to hear about throughout demo week. First, tech teams are the companies and universities who build digital products through our sprints. User advocates are the community organizations, nonprofits, and people with lived experiences who work with tech teams to make sure the products are useful to real people and consider end user needs. Data stewards and other policy experts are government agency representatives who help connect teams with data and information that they need. And finally, product advisors help to make sure these new tools get out into real end users' hands and have a sound product strategy. But really, the best way to understand what TOP is all about is to hear it directly from those who have been part of it. Now, let's hear from some of this year's sprint participants on what TOP means to them.
It was completely different than anything I'd ever done before, participated in before. And the whole idea of the Census Bureau helping people access government data to help understand things like air pollution and transportation, I was hooked.
And I think I've always been interested in how we integrate emerging technology, innovative solutions to the government process. How do we source out open data, right?
It was a way of engaging the private sector and potentially include folks who haven't been included in the conversation before.
At the end of the day, we're all working together to solve a problem that all of us face.
I would be able to take my perspective as someone who's been in the field to see what works and, getting to see this evolve from the beginning to the end prototype.
A lot of times startups make the claim that they're going to change and revolutionize the world, but it's usually just another commercial app, right? That doesn't solve or fix anything. It just gets us to buy more things.
And I think because TOP prioritizes the user research phase at the beginning, that really kind of just shifted the focus of all the tech teams and data stewards and all the participants.
We had people that were coming from a place not only of deep knowledge and experience, but also passion.
The whole team made us really want to look more about reaching across other agencies for help.
It's something that certainly you don't get otherwise. It's very difficult to get access to different government organizations.
Seeing that it was something that was on other people's minds, not just a problem that we're dealing with in a silo, but something that is being worked on together by people with different, unique skill sets.
I'm struck not only by the depth of the resources that we've been able to access in the form of user advocates, data sets, and data stewards, but the focus the entire way on human-centered design. So throughout the entire sprint, there was such an emphasis on who's a user, like what are their needs? How will this data set or this technology ultimately help them? And the Opportunity Project gave us a lot of options, but they also kept us focused on what we were solving.
I've been really impressed, not only by people's willingness to do this, but also by the professionalism of those in government who are trying to make a difference.
Well, one thing I've learned, which was a complete shock, was that the Census Bureau is doing this kind of stuff. Like, wow, super cool. Certainly the Census Bureau is all about data, but then helping other agencies in the federal government to connect to citizens in the country, yeah, that was completely new for me and really, really neat and wonderful.
Wow, it's incredible to see the impact this process has had on the people involved and how transformational it can be in bringing all of us together for one common goal. Thank you to everyone who participated this year, and we're looking forward to celebrating your work and accomplishments over the next 3 days. We're happy that you now form part of the TOP community. Today, you'll hear about tech products from our Natural Environment Sprint, a live demo expo featuring new products, a panel featuring student teams, followed by a discussion that lifts up the voices of respected members from tribal communities. Now, we're almost ready to start our first session of the day, Earth Day Every Day, empowering the public to understand threats to oceans and air. We will kick things off in just a few minutes, so stay tuned.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the next session of Demo Week, Earth Day Every Day, empowering the public to understand threats to oceans and air. As stewards of the Earth, we have an obligation to limit and reduce our negative impacts on the ecosystems we inhabit. Unfortunately, we're often unaware of how our decisions and actions can affect the planet. So tools that empower the public to understand these critical threats to oceans and air and create opportunities for everyone to help can be transformative. And this is exactly the challenge that our collaborators took on this year. In TOP's Natural Environment Tech Development Sprint, we had an incredible turnout in response to this call to action. As you'll witness today, teams signed up to create digital solutions that address many key issues. The ones that we'll hear about in this session focus on reducing ocean plastic pollution and helping the public understand the effects of transportation emissions on air quality. In this session, we'll first hear from experts Nancy Majower from NOAA and renowned explorer and researcher Jenna Jambeck from National Geographic on the urgency and significance of the issues at hand. Then we'll hear 7 lightning talks showcasing new solutions to address these challenges built through the Opportunity Project's Natural Environment Sprint. Now, I am so excited to introduce Nancy Majower, the Deputy Chief Information Officer of NOAA Fisheries at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration within the US Department of Commerce. NOAA has demonstrated incredible leadership in public-private partnerships to unleash the potential of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning for the stewardship of the nation's oceans, ensuring productive and sustainable fisheries, safe sources of seafood, and maintaining healthy ecosystems. We're honored to have her introduce our first session. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Majower with the National NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you. Earth Day is an annual event celebrated worldwide to support environmental protection. There are a variety of opportunities in outreach and education during this important campaign, but it's important to note that these efforts aren't just limited to one day a year. That is critical to promote and live its cause year-round. Earth Day was started as a movement to bring awareness to the health and well-being of our planet. It has special significance for NOAA because the grassroots effort occurred at the creation of our agency at the same year, 1970. For the last 50 years, NOAA scientists have brought their expertise and innovations to help solve the Earth's biggest challenges. NOAA science teams are always looking at the future, either to forecast the weather, monitor the atmosphere and ocean, track the health of other nations' fisheries, collect important data and observations about Earth's changing climate, and so much more. Our mission is to understand, predict changes in climate, weather, oceans, and coasts, share that knowledge and information with others, and conserve and manage coastal and marine ecosystems and resources. Our scientists work hard to protect threatened or endangered species of marine life, and that's where I come in. As the Deputy CIO for NOAA Fisheries, I work with experts and help them to improve the technologies behind what we do, from managing our nation's fisheries in an environmentally responsible way to growing more seafood to improve locally sourced nutritional choices on your dinner plate, to even protecting marine species like whales, dolphins, and sea turtles. We provide vital services for the nation, productive and sustainable fisheries, safe sources of seafood, the recovery and conservation of protected resources, and healthy ecosystems, all backed by sound science and an ecosystem-based approach to management. But it doesn't stop there. The agency as a whole employs some of the nation's best scientists who do everything from weather forecasts that impact your everyday to ocean and space science to help understand our planet and how it's changing. How do we then promote and modernize our environmental stewardship? One of my primary responsibilities is to ensure that NOAA Fisheries scientists and their staff have the best tools, technologies, partnerships, and the support to conduct their jobs. The only way we can do that is by focusing on tools, technologies, and core functions. Then we can invest and nurture our mission areas while partnering with organizations for other areas that we do not have the expertise or experience in yet. NOAA's new strategies in 6 key science and technology focus areas will guide transformative advancement in the quality and timeliness of NOAA's products and services across our mission areas. Our strategies in the fields of uncrewed systems, artificial intelligence, and the field and cloud computing, and the use of advanced methods to analyze materials such as DNA, RNA, and proteins called omics. Data and citizen science will help us more efficiently and effectively adopt the breakthrough S&T applications to help deliver the world's best weather forecast and to grow the American blue economy. For NOAA Fisheries, our recent advances in AI applications are not only reducing data processing time, but also resulting in quality and improvement in timeliness of scientific products. We are demonstrating skill, speed, and cost efficiencies with our strategic work that leverage AI research and development across the agency. These emerging fields require advancement and computing to execute our mission. For us to be able to do our jobs, we need to have more knowledge of what's going on in the ocean. For example, Google AI has been partnering with NOAA's Pacific Islands Fisheries Science Center to train an artificial intelligence model on their vast collection of underwater recordings. This project is helping scientists better understand whales' behavior and migratory patterns, so scientists can better protect whales. So this effort fits into Google's AI for Social Good program, applying the latest in machine learning to the world's biggest humanitarian environmental challenges. Like us, whales sing, but unlike us, their songs can travel hundreds of miles underwater. Despite decades of being protected against whaling, 15 of whales are still listed, species of whales are still listed under the Endangered Species Act. To better protect these animals, the first step is to know where they are so that we can mitigate the risks they face, whether that's putting the right marine protected areas in place or giving warnings to vessels. Since whales and dolphins spend very little time at the surface of the water, visually finding and counting them is very difficult. NOAA has been using high-frequency acoustic recording packages, or also called HARPs, to record underwater audio at 12 different sites in the Pacific Ocean, some starting as early as 2005. They have accumulated over 170,000 hours of underwater audio recordings. It would take over 19 years for someone to listen to all of it, working 24 hours a day. Now everyone can play a role in this project using a website called Pattern Radio, Whale Songs. It's a new tool that visualizes audio at a vast scale and uses AI to make it easy to explore. The site hosts more than 8,000 hours of NOAA's recordings, which means scientists aren't the only ones who can explore the data and make discoveries. Everyone can. The idea is to get everyone listening and maybe even make a totally new discovery. If you find something you think others should hear, you can share that link and it goes directly to that sound. So what's next? What are we working on? We are partnering with Google to use AI and machine learning to predict extreme weather and analyze weather data. Environmental data. Advancing our culture with the pace of digital innovation and constant need to meet our mission priorities. This requires major focus on organizational workforce and digital transformation. Equipping our workforce with tools and technologies that drive change and improve operational efficiency. Building platforms and partnerships that scale and bring velocity. Integrating citizen-centric and value in everything that we do, both internally and externally. And again, advancing our mission through modernized solutions. We hope you keep these insights in mind today as you tune into the upcoming lightning speakers. But first, let me introduce Jenna Jenbeck. She is an award-winning she's with the National Geographic Fellow. She's award-winning explorer, environmental engineer, and professor of environmental science at the University of Georgia. She's been conducting research on solid waste issues for over 20 years with related projects on marine debris since 2001. She also specializes in global waste management issues and plastic containment. She is a co-developer of a mobile app, Marine Debris Tracker, a tool that continues to facilitate a growing global citizen science initiative that has documented the location of over 2 million litter and marine debris items removed from the environment throughout this world. Welcome, Jenna.
Thanks so much, Nancy. It's really great to be here today. It's an honor. I've been able to work with the Opportunity Project as a user advocate as well. So it's really fun to be here to kick off this event. So I know, growing up in a small town in Minnesota, we actually had a really strong environmental ethics. So I love this Earth Day every day was definitely something I chanted even in an Earth Day parade. I remember participating in as a young child, and I think engaging people, communities is really kind of what we're talking about today. And I'm going to focus mostly on the plastic pollution aspect of this task, but there actually are some corollaries, I think, with air pollution. These pink circles on this graphic developed by National Geographic show the concentration of plastic floating on the surface of our ocean. And Marcus Erickson of Five Gyres had called this a plastic smog. Because there's small microplastic particles floating on the surface. You can also see here the blue colors on land are the estimates of mismanaged waste that are available to enter the ocean globally. That estimate is more than a dump truck of plastic entering the ocean every minute. And the yellow parts here show the rivers and how the rivers can be conduits for moving this plastic from the land to the ocean. And this is really the topic that we're talking about today in terms of how do you monitor, how do you collect data in this large of a space? And again, there's a corollary with the ocean and our air as well. So we're really talking about interventions and solutions today. And so thinking about this in a framework, this is something that I developed for testimony to Congress. But if we want to have zero input of plastic into the ocean, reducing that to zero, it opens up opportunities, why this is the Opportunity Project, for intervention sort of along this whole value chain. If you can think about all these different locations, it's going to be everything from really looking at where and how we use plastic. Can we reduce waste that we generate? Are we going to look at different materials, improve waste management systems around the world, and then capturing litter before it gets to the ocean as a last chance, but really collecting data in that space to inform those upstream interventions that can really bend that curve to zero. And most recent data that has come out about that curve is really showing that we are taking action right now, but guess what? we need to take more. We need sort of all hands on deck here, because even with the current sort of practices that we have that are really the business as usual, the amount of plastic entering our environment, so not just our ocean, we really care about our entire environment that it's entering, could be as much as 20 to 53 million metric tons by 2030. So we need to be even more aggressive about what we're doing. So I want to jump into a little case study. I know we're here to highlight the teams, but I want to talk about the power of open data, community collaboration in science, and to do that, I want to focus on our Sea to Source expedition that happened last year along the Ganges River in both Bangladesh and India. An amazing interdisciplinary team. We studied air, water, sediment, land, and social systems with this amazing team from 5 different countries. And we used a tool, you heard reference sort of in the introduction, called Marine Debris Tracker, but this is an open source, open data tool. We use this to collect a lot of our research data. And we actually are now over 3 million items logged with this citizen science platform. But that also meant that as we use this tool for research and other researchers use it, it's totally open to citizens around the world to use as well. And there's a lot of power in that data. So you can see on the left here, the yellow track of our over 2,500 kilometer expedition and the data we collected. And then also citizens in India and Bangladesh were collecting data as well along with us, either in their communities or in the communities we were working in as well. So it's very detailed, open data. And we weren't just looking at sort of that leakage and that litter component. Again, we were collecting data on how to prevent plastic from ending up in our environment in the first place. So how are things packaged? How are community members interfacing with the material? What are the obstacles to change? All there are alternatives that folks can utilize. And so it was really sort of this more of a holistic approach involving the community, especially where they have the knowledge, the expertise, and are able to bring that to the table to talk about how they can create change. And part of that is providing the data to empower that change, right? So they participate in the data collection. We held workshops so people could, learn more about how to use the tool, how to use the tracker, how to utilize the data, and thinking about interfacing with school kids as well, developing curriculum. National Geographic, in collaboration with our partners, has developed curriculum for students to use as well. So really involving the community and, as I said, empowering them with this data. And that's what I think you're going to see from the amazing teams who have been working with the open data that's available, showing the power in that. And I think opportunity shows potential. So there's so much potential in what you're about to see, and it can only grow with the power of the community. So look forward to our speed talks coming up. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Wow, we so appreciate your incredible work that clearly reaches far beyond the Opportunity Project, but we're so grateful that you were willing to share your wisdom and research throughout the sprints. I know the teams really valued it, and I think some of them will actually mention that in the lightning talks that we're about to hear. So now let's hear from the technologists about the solutions they developed for these 2 challenges. Now we're excited to move into the lightning talks from the tech teams who focused on these challenges. First, we'll hear from OpenAQ, American University, and Rutgers University IDEA program on their work on the challenge of measuring the impact of transportation emissions on air quality, our challenge in collaboration with EPA. And then we'll hear from Georgetown University, Rutgers Computer Science Program, Esri, and IBM about their work on reducing ocean plastic pollution, our challenge in collaboration with the Wilson Center and the US State Department. First, we'll hear from teams that worked on the air quality challenge, and I'll hand it over to Shruti from OpenAQ to kick us off. Shruti, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shruti Modakirti, and I'm the platform lead at OpenAQ, and I'll be talking to you about the snapshot tool that we developed as part of the Opportunity Project. Air pollution causes 1 out of every 8 deaths on the planet. It is one of the biggest public health and human rights issues of our time. As part of the Opportunity Project, we spoke to a number of different community advocates, including Clean Air Carolina, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation, SLC Air Protectors, and the CEEGH Lab from UMD to understand how communities are tackling the challenge of air pollution. And throughout the conversations, we discovered that often data exists, air quality data exists in different formats or in data silos. Air quality data doesn't exist at all. And there's nothing to back up the lived experience that communities are facing with air pollution. And so the challenge that we tried to tackle was that community groups don't have access to data to back up the lived experience of poor air quality. And second part of the challenge is that existing tools that examine air quality data are too complicated for everyone to make use of and to understand. And we found that communities absolutely need basic access to data to actually fight for change and influence policy. And that's where OpenAQ comes in. So we're a nonprofit that is dedicated to fighting air pollution with open data and community. We're globally based, and we have an open source platform that aggregates and harmonizes air quality data from over 95 countries, and we pull in EPA Air Now data for US air quality measurements. And this is an open source platform that's on GitHub, and all of this data is available easily through an API. And so as part of this project, we've developed an additional API endpoint that averages a lot of the data and makes it easier to understand the real-time data that is coming into the platform. And then on top of the averaging tool, we built the snapshot tool. And let's say I'm a community activist and I'm in Los Angeles and I want to understand what the air quality has been like for the past year. So I select averaging time interval day and the dates. And then here it brings up a snapshot of the air quality for the past year. You can see some statistics, the number of stations that exist in the area and the map. And you can see that according to the World Health Organization guidelines, we had some days probably due to the fires this year where air quality was unhealthy. You can also download the data that shows up in this snapshot tool and save it as a CSV file and share this snapshot easily through social media like Twitter. In addition to getting this snapshot, you can also learn a little bit more about what's happening in your area and learn more about what is air inequality, how does it affect me, what is PM 2.5. This is what OpenAQ worked on for the Opportunity Project. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to get feedback, and we hope you can join us at the exposition to learn more about the tool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shruti. It's really exciting to see how you've incorporated federal open data into a global platform like this, and look forward to seeing where it goes from here. Now we'll hear from Chase from American University about their product focused on transportation emissions and air quality in DC. Over to you, Chase.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chase, and I'm a master's in data science student at American University and was one of the contributors on the AirMotion DC tech product. For a moment, I want you to think about 3 separate scenarios. First, a government agency, student, or researcher is interested in analyzing the real-time relationship between air pollution and transportation. Second, maybe an activist is interested in showing how this relationship differs by location and may be harming one community more than another. 3, maybe a DC resident is interested in seeing current weather, air pollution, or traffic in their location in order to decide their morning commute. What's stopping them currently? We identify 3 major problems currently preventing these 3 groups. First is a lack of real-time data. Most data is reported with a significant lag, and 2018 or 2019 data surely won't help our DC resident know about their morning commute. Second is a lack of granular data. Where the data does exist, it's mostly reported at the citywide level, preventing our activists from understanding which communities are most at risk. Third is a lack of data cohesion. Most of the data that's real-time is separated between platforms, with air quality data in one location, traffic data in another, and weather in yet a third. This would complicate the process for our government agencies and student researchers. Well, how can open data help? Like we mentioned, the data does exist, which is the good news. Through existing APIs at AirNow, OpenWeather, and TomTom, we were able to create a real-time repository to update with air quality, weather, and traffic data for DC. To select the locations we would pull from, we utilized Open Data DC to create a data set of every road segment in DC and randomly sampled this group to create a location data set to pull the API data from. Since this only included latitude and longitude data, which isn't helpful for most end users who wouldn't know that, we merged this with more helpful location information from the DC GIS master address repository, like quadrants, zip codes, and wards. So our overall solution then is AirMotion DC, a real-time data tool which analyzes traffic patterns, air pollution, and weather in the District of Columbia. This enables the user to explore the real-time relationship between transportation and air quality at both a granular location-specific level and a citywide level. The interface includes several features, 4 of which are shown in front of you. The first, an overview page to greet the user and explain the tool. Second, a background page to explain where the data is sourced from and include additional resources for the user to engage with. The bottom 2 are raw data pages for the end user who's interested in more deep dives into the data. Our 2 main features are a citywide location tab and a location search tab. The citywide tab features features traffic patterns, air pollution, and weather data for the whole of DC, where users can dive into current data, compare it to data from 1 week ago, or to the full historic data set. Users are able to select which parameters on traffic, air quality, and weather they'd like to include, with metrics such as current travel time, ozone air quality index, and temperature to view. A variety of graphics are provided for data exploration, including tables, bar charts, trend lines, and location maps. The Location Search tab, as you can see on the left, functions similarly to the Citywide tab, but allows users to select which specific location they'd like to observe and compare, like the quadrants, wards, and zip codes I previously mentioned. With these features, our government agencies, student researchers, activists, and DC residents alike are all able to achieve their end goal. Our initial tool was developed for the use of the DC Department of Energy and Environment, who are interested in developing a long-term data set of fine-scale traffic data to estimate vehicle miles traveled and emissions from. Our biggest next step then is to expand our end user base to more than just the DC Department of Energy. For those interested, the link to our tool is provided here with contact information for our team if you have any questions or comments for us. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Chase. It's so awesome to see how you've integrated both federal and private sector API data into this tool, and we can't wait to see how the DC Department of Energy and others will use it.
Thank you.
Next, I will hand it over to Sukhmeet from Rutgers University to talk about their product in response to the same challenge. I'll turn it over to you now.
Hi, my name is Sukhmeet Betty, and I'm from the Rutgers IDEA team, and our product is Better Air, Better Schools. So essentially, 26 million kids take the bus to school and back home every single day, and every year, around 14 million students end up having school day absences that are linked to transportation emissions. But at that age, they're not really educated and they're not really taught about what transportation emissions are, what their effects are, and what can be done to change that so there are less absences. So our goal with our product, Better Air, Better Schools, is to basically educate and raise awareness within a segment of youth from 5 to 8. So throughout this entire design sprint, we carry this quote really heavily. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And with that, meet NIMBY. So imagine you are a student in 2nd grade and you take the bus to school every day. and in class, you come today and you learn about NIMBY. So this is your cloud companion to help you learn about air quality and air pollution. So with our product, we take you through an interactive set of games that help you learn more about what air pollution is, what causes of air pollution are, and the things that you could do to take action. And as a kid, you're always inspired by making others happy. And in this case, we want to make NIMBY turn from a gray cloud to a happy cloud. So these are some of the things that our user segment, which is students, they can do. So one thing is action steps. So we have listed out action steps, and we are creating a power map so that students can find who their administrators are, who to contact in the Board of Education, as well as who they can contact and their congressional representatives to actually take action to increase funding their school, to replace school buses or to retrofit school buses in order to decrease emissions, as well as talking to adults in different petitions that they can sign. But it doesn't just end there. Our user group is extremely useful in the fact that they have a tendency to go home and talk to their parents a lot. That brings us to the next point, which is we also have links for parents, different ways that parents can learn about transportation emissions themselves, as well as different links to how they can take action in their community, regards to how they can increase the funding for their school districts, how they can educate themselves and the other parents around them, and different resources that they can implement, because at the end of the day, these are the people that are going to be making the change. In addition to this, we also have a teachers tab, which is going to be used for teachers and school administrators. This tab is essentially going to allow teachers and school administrators to look at the resources that they have available to them from the EPA and their local governments and state governments to essentially figure out and build long-term plans of how to decrease emissions within their communities. And this is extremely useful because not only is this giving them an educational plan, which can be implemented within to the curriculum to increase education, it's also giving them concrete details of how to increase funding for their district in order to implement all of the things that would actually benefit them in the long term. And our user journey goes from the teacher discovers our website and they show it to our students, who shows it to their parents. And as a whole, the entire user group would make changes through the school administration. And we were really helped by all the federal data that has been compiled. So we use things like the Idle-Free Schools Toolkit, the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, as well as some information from the Magic School Bus Gets Cleaned Up. And essentially, we took all of this research, we simplified these concepts into kid-friendly terms, and we created an understandable set of learning tools that are helpful for not only students, but between 5 and 8 years old, but also teachers, parents, and school administrators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sukhmeet. It's so great to see what an engaging product you've all created to visualize the effects of transportation emissions, and your clear calls to action are such a great way to communicate with students, parents, and schools. Now we'll hear from Elizabeth and Sid from Georgetown University's Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation to share their approach that addresses plastic pollution on college campuses. Over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Nguyen, and Sid and I are seniors at Georgetown University. On behalf of the Georgetown team, we are so excited to introduce you all to the Clean Campus Initiative. For our initiative against ocean plastics, we wanted to focus upstream. From our user research, we found the first step to getting plastic out of the oceans is to properly manage waste in our own communities. We wanted to target a population not typically engaged in the plastics conversation, and decided the community we could have the most impact on would be our own. Collaborating with the Wilson Center and Earth Challenge 2020, we created the Clean Campus Initiative designed to educate and engage college students on ocean plastics. Looking at our own Georgetown community, we realized there's a lack of baseline recycling education on campus. I come from rural North Carolina, where we can't recycle glass in my town, and realized there is no education for students coming to DC from all areas of the world on how to recycle. We wanted to expand the conversation from just environmentally focused students to students of every background, and hopefully create a community shift in the way we interact with plastics. We created 3 products to engage the college community on different levels, from general education modules, interaction with the Earth Challenge 2020 app through a dashboard, and a strategy playbook to spread our initiative to other campuses.
Since college students come from diverse backgrounds and experiences, our first product ensures that every student is aware of the role they can play in reducing plastic pollution. This first product is a set of education modules to be facilitated during each college's new student orientation period. Crafted through best practice research, as well as guidance from our wonderful user advocates, the content of this curriculum is split into 3 modules. The first module engages students on how plastic pollution impacts the environment, specifically the oceans. The second module discusses the importance of recycling and what types of materials can be recycled. The third module covers campus-specific policies and resources, as well as information on how students can get engaged. Each module will include visuals and a short quiz to ensure that the learning is retained. For students that express more interest in these issues, our second product helped engage them even more in reducing plastic in their college communities.
Our second product is a university-specific dashboard that integrates with the Earth Challenge 2020 app led by the Earth Day Network, the Wilson Center, and the State Department on one of the largest citizen science projects to date. Through the Earth Challenge 2020 app, users can track plastic pollution in their communities and mark the location of plastics found. Universities have an organizational code on the app to partition their campus-specific data. These data entries will be embedded onto a map on our dashboard to allow us to visualize all plastics tracked in the Georgetown community. Other features on the dashboard include instructions on using the app, the total amount of plastic collected, a student to plastic ratio, and additional resources for students, including links to our other products, information on joining environmental clubs and classes. Students then both interact and contribute to open federal data sets. For Georgetown specifically, this dashboard will live on the Office of Sustainability websites and will also include Georgetown-specific campus resources. For other universities, this dashboard can be easily customized and embedded onto websites of their choice.
Our first 2 products for the Clean Campus Initiative focus on a specific campus, where we use Georgetown University as a pilot. However, our third product, a strategy playbook, is forward-looking. This playbook provides an overview of the importance of reducing plastic pollution, as well as the details on every step we took, including user advocate outreach, collegiate stakeholder engagement, and product development. It will live on the Wilson Center website, as well as campus-specific websites, and is designed to help any college student or group easily bring the Clean Campus Initiative to their campus as well. As we complete our first round of user testing, our next step is to not only finish implementing this initiative at Georgetown, but to find other college students who are excited to bring this initiative to their campus. After all, only by scaling and spreading this initiative can we truly reduce plastic pollution in our communities and oceans. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Georgetown team. It's incredible to see that you've been able to create so many products in such a short period of time and how well you've integrated it within your own campus. We're so excited to see how this will scale to other campuses. Next, I'll hand it over to Naveen from Rutgers University to share how his team handled this challenge. Naveen, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Naveen Narayanan, and I'm a master's student from the Department of Computer Science at Rutgers University. We are working on a project that hopefully will help reduce plastic pollution in the oceans. We conducted weeks of research to understand the extent of this problem and how to address it. The numbers we found about plastic pollution in the ocean was scary. 1 million plastic drinking bottles purchased every minute, and only 9% of the plastic has been recycled. About 8.3 billion tons of plastic produced since 1950, and the ocean plastics directly impact more than 800 species worldwide. So our goal and motivation were to be part of a community trying to protect marine animals, humans, and environmental health by encouraging both the volunteers and organizations to participate in more beach cleanup events. We followed an agile methodology to develop our product, started by engaging the user advocates from Ocean Conservancy, Lonely Whale, and the University of Georgia to understand the problem more and shape our product's objectives. We used the global beach cleanup events, federal data from various mobile and web applications, such as Marine Litter Watch, Marine Debris Monitoring and Assessment Project, and trash information and data for education and solutions. After cleaning and preparing this data, we started with the development process of our product. The steps of development were iterative. We developed the product, took feedback from user advocates, and we were back to development again. Ultimately, we came up with a web dashboard that is addressed to both the volunteers and organizers of beach cleanup events. From the volunteers' point of view, we are providing the tools and data visualization that will help them track their work and identify the trends in beach cleanup events through seasons. The dashboard will also suggest beach cleanup events near their location. They can also check the progress of beach cleanup events in other countries. We provide the latest news and guidance from various blogs and social media sites. Finally, they can also check the type of animals entangled and focus more on protecting it. Moving on, we developed a separate web page in our dashboard for the beach cleanup event organizers. The organizers can use our dashboard to check the beach cleanup, to check the beaches that lack beach cleanup events, predict the number of volunteers needed for a beach cleanup event. By incorporating machine learning algorithms, we forecasted the increase in number of beach cleanup events in the future. Finally, we also help them to plan and share their cleanup events. We made our web application user-friendly by adding an easy-to-use tutorial. The users of our dashboard can download images and export reports. Some of the interactive tools that we have used in our web application are zooming, filtering, screen sharing, screenshots, and coloring. So we also believed that increasing the awareness globally regarding both the problem and the solution is an essential factor in measuring this product success. Hence, we embedded a Twitter list that shows the latest news and work that have been done regarding this topic and added comprehensive videos, blogs, and references. Our dashboard is deployed on Heroku Cloud application, and you can access the same using the link given below. Lastly, I would like to thank the top team, agency lead, product advisors, fellow teams, my professors, and my teammates Abhinav and Fatima for their opportunity, continuous support, guidance, and encouragement. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much to another awesome team. It's so exciting to see how your product really closes the loop between volunteers and beach cleanup organizers. And we're excited to see what kind of collaboration that leads to in the future. Now I'll turn it over to Keith from Esri to talk about how they use story maps to address this challenge. Keith, please take it away.
Thanks, Drew. Hello, I'm Keith Van Graafland, product engineer at Esri. Today, I'm excited to share an overview of the solution we collaborated on towards the ocean plastics problem. A major part of the ocean's plastic problem is not having a good handle on the severity. That's why the underlying theme for our ocean's plastic story map is you can't manage what you can't measure. Thanks to the integration of GIS with the sciences of remote sensing and in situ observation and measurement, we have a stronger understanding of ocean plastic pollution, its major sources, movement, impacts, and ultimate destinations. Recently, environmental emergency response experts from the US EPA, Oceans P3 Systems, and Esri collaborated in the development of a story map to better inform individuals and communities about the global ocean plastics problem and to provide options for taking action. The story map is an interactive experience, as you can see, accessible through a web browser that gives readers the ability to explore the ocean plastic problem with rich maps, graphics, and other related resources, including links and citations for relevant publications and openly accessible online resources. Throughout this project, what was most apparent is the role that individuals play in taking action against the problem. As individuals, we should be more conscious about sustainability when making purchases, as well as ensuring that goods, including plastics, are utilized to their full potential. The Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World, provided by the United Nations, lists many options where individuals can get involved at different levels, whether it's at home or at their workplace or in their community. Some of the examples of this are buying minimally packaged goods or bringing your own coffee mug or to a coffee shop or reusing refillable water bottles. Understanding the role of the individual in solving the problem is key to helping curb that problem. Really, it all starts by understanding where ocean plastics come from and the likelihood of plastic being recycled. It's all critical to addressing our plastic pollution crisis. Currently, virgin plastic production is more cost effective than recycling. Here, we visualize the process of virgin plastic creation beginning in oil and gas fields through production to ultimate creation of plastic pellets that are used by factories for manufacturing of plastic goods. Understanding how recycling works and the likelihood of plastic being recycled is also very important. We need to value recycled plastics appropriately and incentivize recycling programs to be more efficient and more effective. Too much opportunity for plastic to escape into the environment exists and not to be recycled. Even if the consumer places the plastic in a streamlined recycling bin for collection, the chances of that being recycled are minimal. These changes are required to slow and stop plastic leakage into our environment. Once plastic enters the environment, it is transported by waterways and stormwater systems to our oceans, where the problem exponentially worsens. These impacts are not only a menace to aquatic wildlife, plastics continue to degrade into smaller microplastics, producing a direct threat on food security. Microplastics in the open ocean are referred to by cleanup experts as the world's largest continuous oil spill, only in solid droplet form. Due to the petroleum-based origin and impact on the wildlife and environment and level of difficulty for cleaning up. GIS plays an important role in providing mappable survey information with locations and statistics for citizen science cleanup events that are occurring globally. Organizations such as the Wilson Center are working to harmonize global cleanup efforts and collect and inventory cleanups on our coastlines. While this only addresses a fraction of the ocean plastic problem, these data provide insight for estimating the amount and severity of plastic in our natural environment globally. In this map, we can see cleanup locations over time where individuals or groups participated in visualize the collected debris and plastic information. It's clear that individuals play a key role in combating the ocean plastic crisis, whether it's reducing our pollution footprint, buying more sustainable packaging, or participating in cleanup events. There's room for all of us to make a difference. Knowing all of this, an important way that individuals can actively participate is by working with local, state, and national government representatives to help enact better legislation and policy to appropriately value recycled plastics. Until recycled plastics are valued appropriately, causing virgin plastic production to slow or cease, detrimental damages to our environment will outpace our ability to act sustainably. By engaging with your government officials, voicing the importance of this critical issue, and by practicing your right to vote, you can help make a difference in the global ocean plastic crisis. I encourage you to check out the story map to discover more about the ocean plastics problem, take a deeper dive into the available maps, statistics, and other resources, and learn how we can do better. Let's not let this problem continue and pass it along to future generations. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's so incredible to see all of the work that's gone into this product, and I hope that everyone will take the time to check it out at the Live Demo Expo and learn more. Next, I'll turn it over to Kunal from IBM to talk about how they have approached this challenge. Kunal, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Kunal Savakar. I'm from IBM's Data Science Elite team, and today we'll be walking you through how AI can help in the challenge for global marine litter. One of the key objectives of UN Sustainable Development Goal, as we understood from our stakeholders, was to reduce the amount of plastic pollution throughout the planet. However, doing so is not possible for the simple reason that we don't know how much global marine litter exists. So creating a baseline and a lack of uniform data collection mechanism makes it a harder problem to solve. And the reason behind that is because we don't really have are scientific surveys conducted all over the world using the same methodology. And some places are frequented too often while others are not. So given amount of litter that we observe, we need to come up with an estimate of how much global litter exists all over the place, all over the countries, as well as throughout the world. Now, doing so required us to handle some of the key biases in the data, like temporal biases, which is about like the data collected today is dependent on what happened yesterday, as well as the spatial biases that some places which are sampled too frequently, as well as the blind spot bias, which is about some data and the litter that we will never be able to capture because it can get washed away to the sea. To handle these challenges, we make use of Wilson Center's combined data set and cataloged it into Watson Knowledge Catalog to get a clean, conform, and searchable view of a data set that researcher can trace back to. Then we have used machine learning to build a baseline model for marine litter density with the help of Bayesian inference technique to account for uncertainties in the data set. Doing so allowed us to use this information for predicting how much effort is required at a given place so that volunteer can optimize their resources accordingly, as well as which policies are more effective in order to go towards a zero discharge, as well as track the progress of the marine litter density over year and year over different places. So we use a dashboard in order to see this progress. This particular dashboard allows the user to see the marine litter density for plastic and non-plastic debris at every given location. They can also see when the beach was last cleaned, what was the top organization that cleaned it, and which was the collection mechanism that was used for that particular location by the different methodologies, as well as they can get an estimation of plastic litter density and how is it improving year on year for the different kind of the beaches that are available in the particular realm. Doing so allows us to create a more aggregated view of marine litter density at the country level, which we can include to come up with an estimate of how different countries compare to each other in terms of marine litter density. We can also see the development of marine litter debris over a period of time and split between percentage of plastic being found on the beaches versus the non-plastic items that are being found, and how different places are doing again, or different countries are improving in terms of their plastic pollution challenge. For some of the more cases, like more larger countries, we can also do a drill down. For going through the cleanup effort, the dashboard allows user to see how different countries stack up with each other in terms of cleanup events and what are the key debris that are being found. So for example, Ghana takes a cake in terms of the maximum number of litter found, as well as we can see that United States leads the number of cleanup event, while Malaysia has a lot of volunteering activity in terms of engaging the civic society for the marine litter density engagement. So this allows a view to the end user to engage, as well as have different stakeholders come to the same platform and being part of the ecosystem to join the global marine litter cleanup effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kunal. It's great to hear how IBM has addressed this challenge, and we look forward to seeing what's next. Thank you again to everyone who contributed to these products. It's incredible to see the lightning talks showing how everything turned out. We hope you'll stick around to hear about more natural environment focused products built through this year's sprints in the next session and reactions from community experts who helped to work with them. Then we'll jump into our virtual exhibit hall to meet the teams who built these tools. We'll be right back with our next session, Building Resilience into Fractured Systems.
Welcome to our next session, Building Resilience into Fractured Systems, Recycling and Agriculture. In this session, we'll dig into two systems that connect society to the natural environment and explore how tech and data can help. Recycling is a billion-dollar industry that provides millions of jobs to American workers, yet there is a huge untapped potential for connecting companies and manufacturers that need access to raw and recycled materials. Farmers and ranchers are part of a vital infrastructure that powers America, but are often at the mercy of environmental and economic conditions out of their control. Connecting people to data is key to solving both of these challenges. This year, we partnered with the Environmental Protection Agency and Department of Agriculture and dozens of Sprint participants to tackle those challenges through open data, technology, and cross-sector collaboration. During this session, we'll hear from a data and AI expert about the treasure troves of data at partner agencies like USDA, and then hear 4 lightning talks about new tech products built to address these two challenges. Following the demos, we'll hear on-the-ground community reactions with experts from advocacy, city government, universities, policy centers, and more. They'll discuss how we can translate these incredible tools to reach those that need them the most. This is a brand new part of Demo Week that we're thrilled to highlight this year. Now, to help us understand the enormous potential of the Department of Agriculture's data, I'm glad to introduce Eric Ewing from GSA's IT Modernization Centers of Excellence. Congrats to our friends at the Centers of Excellence who were just signed into law this past week, making them a permanent component of the innovation ecosystem within government. Eric is a director at the AI and Data Centers of Excellence at the General Services Administration, or GSA, who has been instrumental to the data capacity of USDA and other agencies. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Lorena. It's really exciting to be here with the Opportunity Project and all of the great work that's happening in this space. First off, with the Artificial Intelligence Centers of Excellence, our goal is to modernize IT and IT service delivery in the government, including data, AI, and the technical infrastructure. In order to do this, a part of our mission is to partner with the private sector and cross-sector organizations. In doing so, we hope to bring the best of what both the government and industry has to offer in order to deliver results for the American people. Whether that's delivering better services to citizens, whether that's improving office efficiency and functionality, whether that's providing transparency to government data, these are all things that we focus on. And I know through the work of the Opportunity Project also focuses on ensuring that citizens have the power to make use of public data and putting data into the hands of passionate technologists who are looking to solve big, challenging problems. So right now is a very exciting time in the federal space regarding data, artificial intelligence, and otherwise. There is a large push via the Evidence Act to manage data in a more efficient way across all federal agencies, as well as a lot of increased focus of resources and responsibilities along the AI and data spaces, which makes it a great time for folks who are passionate about public data to be working in this space to provide value out of that data for citizens. Ultimately, one of my favorite examples of how data can be impactful to citizens at a service level comes from USDA, where customer experience data or citizen experience data was able to be collected and presented in a way that enabled USDA to better provide critical services to citizens looking for USDA loans. This series of projects called the Tell Sunny dashboards was very, very instrumental in what the COEs are Centers of Excellence first agency, which was USDA. And for us, set the path and demonstrated exactly the amount of power that data can bring, not only to an agency as it's looking to execute against its mission, but to citizens who are so focused on receiving those services and need those services to be effective. Ultimately, our goal is to make all of our agencies more data focused and data driven. And what we see with these projects, with the Opportunity Project, enables that across all of our agencies. Now, ultimately, partnering with the private sector and having that cross-sector experience is very, very meaningful for us, so much so that it's written into our mission. So I am always very excited for events like today, where we get to hear about a variety of projects that are demonstrating how the power of public data can be leveraged to create positive outcomes. Ultimately, I want to wrap up by saying that cross-sector engagement is the lifeblood of what we do within the COEs. It's extraordinarily important to maximize the value, to create efficiencies in the government, to maximize the value of public data, and to create positive impacts for our citizens and for our users via a process that is customer focused, that is citizen focused, and provides the most value we possibly can out of these tremendously valuable data sets. So at this point, I'd like to thank everyone for their time. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Eric, for joining us. The work that you do is just instrumental for innovation in government and across communities, and putting the data, open data, in the hands of the people that need it the most. And thanks to all of our collaborators at GSA's Technology and Transformation Services for your awesome work. So now let's hear from the technologists themselves that participated in this sprint and challenges about the solutions they developed.
All right, now we're excited to move into lightning talks from the tech teams who focused on these challenges. First, we'll hear from Mapbox and New Light Technologies about their work on enabling NAEP data to support agricultural, our collaboration with USDA, and from SAP and EcoBlock on their work to develop markets for recycled materials, our challenge in collaboration with EPA. To kick things off, I'll first hand it over to Mikkel from Mapbox. Take it away, Mikkel.
Hey, thanks, Drew. Hi, everybody. I'm Mikkel from Mapbox, and we worked on NAEP Viewer. Mapbox, I lead the community team at Mapbox. We build tools for developers to add maps to their applications. And this challenge was about NAEP. This is an amazing resource. The entire continental United States is imaged every 3 years, and it's made available to anyone who needs imagery, as well as particularly to USDA agriculture centers at the county level to support people. But it's available in GIS formats. It's not as accessible as it could be, and so that was the challenge we took on: is can we make essentially NAEP imagery as useful, as accessible as the apps that we already have in our pockets for accessing maps. We wanted to make sure that users at the USDA and the farmers they serve could make best use of NAEP. And I'd especially like to thank Joan Beidiger from USDA, who has been really helpful with guidance through this entire process. For our team at Mapbox, we got to stand on the shoulders of a lot of work which had already happened by our imagery team to process all of this imagery into one seamless base map. So NAEP is distributed on a state level, so you can get imagery, in each of the 48 states. To stitch it together and make one seamless image is quite a lot of work. So we had an amazing starting point for volunteers to work on this community project. Pratik Yadav from the imagery team and Arindam Bose from our GLJS team. Basically, we started with, let's take the approach. We have our NAEP layer. Let's use a very simple template. We have a lot of examples to do so, to just build a map viewer using NAEP imagery. That happened really fast. And then we had a number of really great sessions getting feedback from USDA teams. So in August, we gave a pitch about what we had built so far, and Joan had a lot of great feedback, including letting us know that the actual acquisition dates of all the imagery was available and something that we could download and process as well. Here's Oklahoma, and you can see those little stripes. Those are each of the scenes which were acquired on a particular flight on a particular day that all got stitched together for all of Oklahoma. So we also took all that imagery, all that data for all 48 states, and stitched together into the NAEP viewer, which is available at this URL. And when you open up, this is continental United States. You see every NAEP image is there in those green boundaries. And as you zoom in, you actually see the imagery, and you can mouse over to actually see when it was acquired, and pan and zoom, geolocate yourself. So you can just click, and wherever you are, it will locate you and bring you to where the imagery is for your place. And it's really a stunning resource. Farmland, as well as the middle of cities, as well as natural areas, the Mississippi Delta. And it's pretty remarkable to see, how that imagery is stitched together. Here's an example with just 2 weeks apart in 2018. On the left, on the west side, you can see leaf was still on the right side 2 weeks later, already into fall colors. So our plan from here, we're gonna keep the NAEP viewer up, but if there are folks out there who would really like to find a long-term home for a tool like this that makes NAEP easy to use, please get in touch. And I think NAEP can learn a lot from other agencies. NOAA does amazing work with the Big Data program and distributing very massive imagery data sets. So that's it. See you at the live demo. There's my contacts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mikkel. It's so great to see how closely you worked with USDA on this and how that partnership resulted in a more robust use of NAEP data. We're so excited to see how this can support farmers and other agricultural decision makers. And next, I am excited to hand it over to Dave Williams from New Light Technologies to talk about their approach to this challenge and the impacts on precision agriculture. So Dave, I will turn it over to you now.
I thank you for having us. My name is Dave Williams from New Light Technologies, and our project is called Precision Ag, or Agriculture for American Farmers. And the motivation for this has to do with a variety of factors that we're all facing. For example, the global population growth expected to hit, I think, 10 billion by 2100. Factors like climate change that we've all heard of and are working on resolving, and trying to be better environmental stewards, especially regarding the practices that use the land and use the earth. And when it comes to farming, the state of the art and the way that we help meet and address the factors that I just laid out really is through something called precision agriculture, which is it's defined as it's marrying data and technology to intelligently apply seeds and inputs or fertilizers into a farm field so that we get higher yields. In other words, we grow more food within a given area, We have less runoff, right? So we don't over apply fertilizers leading to like algal blooms in the water. And so we have more profits for farmers. And as we're seeing with more folks moving to urban areas, which is a trend, and our growing population, we need to ensure that farmers are incentivized to continue farming to meet the growing demands, the food demands for our population. Well, precision ag is not new. We're not inventing it. It's proven it works. And those benefits that I talked about, well, why isn't everyone using it? Well, a couple reasons. It's expensive. The software is expensive. It's complex and complicated. It often requires advanced training to use it. And the vendors and solutions out there today tend to be closed, very proprietary. And these are barriers to accessing precision ag for farmers, agronomists, and so forth. Well, that is what led to our project, which is called Precision Ag for really all American farmers. And it's a web-based precision ag portal that really is based upon government data, freely available government data, really like USDA NAPE, that provides value in the ability to do precision ag right now. We're also using a variety of models, academic models, other government models to do the analytics, run the analysis so folks can do precision ag, but we're removing the barriers that we've talked about. So how does it work fundamentally? Like, what's the use case? Well, you go to the URL, pagaf.nltmso.com. You log in and define your fields. You have to define where your field boundaries are. Depending upon the model you're running, you input some parameters and you download your result. Now, this is the actual product. This is an example of what's called nitrogen application for corn. Corn is a huge crop. Nitrogen is the most important thing during a grow season. And the different colors represent different nitrogen application amounts based upon that analysis that we just ran. Ultimately, what do we do with this? Well, a farmer agronomist emails and uploads that map I just showed to their tractor. This tractor has a nav system. And as that tractor drives along, based upon that map, that sprayer on the back adjusts how much is coming out, in this case, maybe liquid nitrogen, so that we don't over apply. And so the optimal amount is put down. So we don't, we get the greatest yield, we don't have runoff. That is precision ag in a nutshell. And that is our project. We hope you enjoy it, and I hope you try it out, and really thank you for the opportunity. I'll pass it back. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dave. So cool to see how that work turned out and your take on precision agriculture and how you worked with NAPE data. So next, we'll move into the two teams that focused on developing markets for recycled materials. And first, we will hand it over to our colleagues, Jim and Paulina from SAP.
Hi, thanks so much, Drew. This is Jim Sullivan here with Paulina Gershman from SAP. And our project is really focused around how to help enable public sector and private sector to work together towards a more circular economy focused around city of Chicago. I would be remiss if I didn't start with the global challenge. We worked with my old agency, EPA, and really the idea here is how do we measure planetary impact at scale? So we as a company, our CEO, Christian Klein, was at Davos earlier this year, announced a vision for a plastic-free ocean along with the World Economic Forum Global Plastics Action Partnership, along with World Wildlife Fund, along with Ellen MacArthur Foundation and many of our customers, how we can work together towards this impact, and really how do we align the interests of people, the planet, and modern business to move together to tackle this, this global challenge. So the business question we look to focus on is really around empowered decision making, whether it's for consumers, whether it's employees of a business, whether it's government employees, is how do we really align data with values so that small choices can add up to global impact. One of the big challenges with climate change, with ocean plastics, is many people feel that these issues are so big. What can I do to make a difference? And we're here to show you that today. So the concept of circular economy really starts with responsible design, where 80% of the impact is locked in, it moves to sourcing and marketplace. How do we ethically source materials, including recycled materials at their highest and best value? How do we move towards responsible production and close the loop within waste materials there? And then how do we engage around consumers to get them to get materials back into the productive flow as opposed to being landfilled or incinerated? And finally today, turning over to my colleague Polina, we're going to do a deep dive on resource recovery and reuse and material tracking.
Great. So we'd like to introduce you to Nancy Callahan. Nancy is a Deputy Commissioner of Policy and Sustainability for the City of Chicago. So her ultimate goal is to understand the value of materials within the recycling systems that are lost to landfills. And the means by which she's able to achieve this is through data, right? So one of the big voids for her at the moment is an aggregated view on how resource material is moved within the city limits and also right beyond that. So together with our partners, Pixera, Topolytics, Replay, and the Recycling Partnership, we are undertaking to solve the problem of how can we empower city officials to make informed decisions around resource management that lead to transparency, investment, and job creation. So before we got to Nancy as our main stakeholder, we really needed to understand who the particular players were, both within the local government, but also as we extend out into the private sector, the community, and the individual. And this is pretty important, right? Because there's a lot of interdependency and a lot of connection between the two, right? So for example, for Nancy, she could very well need to see, the information on hauling, right? So where the material is being taken, and also, from a perspective of CPGs, what is it exactly that they are getting rid of? What does it consist of, and how can we put it back into the system? And from a local action and impact perspective, I would just like to take a moment to paint a high-level picture of Nancy's journey and how she could influence, for better decision-making. So at the get-go, she is reviewing material movement data that shows, the movement of stuff, so to speak, around the Chicago city limits. In reviewing this data, she notices some sort of an inconsistency and perhaps a certain percentage of glass and paper that's being moved to part of the west side of Chicago. She's then able to pull up a CPG resource management report, and that shows that a certain glass or paper commodity is in demand by Civic drinks. And that allows her to take action in two ways. One is she's able to create a repurchase model between the city and Civic drinks, creating a material reuse loop. And basically it allows her and Civic to understand how much of the material they sell into a particular region or area, and how much of that material would be available for reprocessing to make into new packaging material. And then lastly, she's also able to put together an investment plan focusing on adding additional facilities in areas around Chicago, which also brings us to another goal that she has, which is around job creation.
Great, thanks so much, Pauline. And to wrap up, local action at scale really helps lead to global impact. So this is an extension of a project we did with the government of Scotland, Topolytics, Coca-Cola, DS Smith, and Brewdog, looking at waste flows for the upcoming COP26 conference, and shows both in Europe and the US how within existing more mature waste management systems, we can track the real-time movement of materials. There's a project in Ghana with the government of Ghana looking at in less developed economies, less developed waste management systems, how to do that and tie into the plastic pickers to bring them more into the formal economy. And then finally, working with Emily Penn, really an option to work with consumers and show how the impact of those choices can help with this. So if you're excited to work with us on this journey, please reach out to circulareconomy@sap.com. Thanks.
Thank you so much, SAP team, Jim and Paulina. It's really exciting to see the work that you're doing and how you can advance a circular economy in Chicago. So next, last but not least, I'll turn it over to Ali from EcoBlock to talk about the work that they've done on this challenge.
Thanks, Drew. And hello, everybody. My name's Ali. I'm a CEO and co-founder of EcoBlock. And the product I'm presenting to you guys is well enough is EcoBlock, excuse me. So EcoBlock provides a transparent recycle marketplace. We utilize blockchain technology basically connect recyclers and buyers. The issue that we uncovered here is that there's not enough transparency in the industry, and this is needed to actually increase consumption of recycled materials. So what our goal is actually to improve the circular economy. We want to push towards a more transparent economy, and the way to do that is through a few ways, but we really want to focus on zero waste. And I'm going to explain how that's done. So the issue, after speaking to a number of users, advocates during this process, was that, for example, KW Plastics, they would say, well, the market is, most of their consumers are, consumer package companies, right? You have to go through the FDA approval, or USD if there's anything that's touching, let's say, haircut products or anything that's touching food. Another issue is that there's cheap oil at this point, and that creates price wars with virgin plastics. So there's a likelihood, there's no incentive for a consumer package company to trust a recycled product when there's cheaper options. So after speaking again to another user advocate, the Plastics Association, they brought up an interesting point. They basically said, hey, we have this EV program that we ran a year or so back, where we seen that car dealerships and auto body shops are basically paying $400 to get car bumpers removed. And that was a eureka moment. We said, okay, what else is out there in terms of industrial opportunities, right? So that we look at this as a opportunity to look downstream for commercial use of products. Our computers, our PCs, the things that we use for our TVs, these things are not, you would say, consumer products. These are industrial use products. Even molding cleats on, football shoes. We all can see these products being used and enhancing our circular economy. We look at industrial use. When we say industrial, we're looking at recycled material that can create bricks or plastic wood. These things can be used for any industrial or real estate project, even if it's using for our driveways. We see this as the new way to actually reduce our carbon footprint, increase manufacturing and assembly on shore, and this will actually create the jobs. So where do we come in this opportunity? Well, we're EcoBlock, and the value here is that when you come, you can search for products by geography, and this helps small municipalities. This helps large municipalities. It helps everybody communicate through a trusted platform. Now you can verify your products. You can verify the person that you're interacting with. You can track your shipments, and you can negotiate price, which is very important. This actually reduces the dependency on brokers and sketchy people that's associated with the recycling industry. So our solution provides verified buyers. In previous material marketplaces that we've seen, was that most of the people that comes to these things that they want to be involved, but they're more artisan. This is more focused more on I would say bigger consumption of products. You have a supply chain network where you could track, you can negotiate, you have risk management elements to it, and you have dashboards and payment and processing, all handled through our platform. Our platform hasn't yet launched yet, but if you have any more if you need more information, please contact me at ali@ecoblock.io. thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ali. It's so cool to see how you're using blockchain for this challenge, and just in general to see how each team has taken on these problem statements in such different ways. So that concludes our lightning talks for this session. Thank you so much again to all of our speakers and the participants on these problem statements in our sprints this year. We look forward to seeing all of you throughout the rest of Demo Week, and especially at the Live Demos Expo later today. We hope that you will all sign into that to get a closer look at these products. And next, we will turn it over to our on-the-ground community reactions panel, who are going to discuss what's next for these products and how we can really get them into end users' hands. Thank you.
Wow, that was so awesome. It's so exciting to hear about these 11 new technology products introduced during the last 2 sessions. Now, welcome to a lightning round discussion where we'll hear reactions from the end users themselves. I'm Dominique Azou with the Opportunity Project team, and I'll be moderating this discussion. Over the course of this sprint, over 40 different user advocates came together to consistently and generously offer knowledge and expertise to tech teams to ensure that the community and the end users' needs were at the center of these products. The tools that you have just seen were steadily shaped by the perspectives of these individuals and the voices of the communities that they serve, helping to ensure product adoption. Now, 4 of these experts will join me here and share their views around sustainability and scale and how these tools can reach those in need to create the most impact. I will now first turn it to Sarah Kohler from Ocean Conservancy. Hi, Sarah. In regards to the tools created to address the reducing ocean plastic pollution problem statement, and given your extensive experience working as outreach manager for the International Coastal Cleanup under Ocean Conservancy's Trash-Free Seas program, and being a crucial data steward and user advocate for 2 of our sprints, what change do you see? What change do you feel these products can make in the communities that you work with?
Yeah, thank you all so much. And thank you for allowing Ocean Conservancy to take part in Topic. It's just been a wonderful experience for myself, and being able to work hand in hand with the tech teams has been fantastic. So these products that they've developed that we just saw in some of the demos are vital for our partners. A lot of our partners that we work with are local or maybe even state level nonprofit partners such as ourselves. And a lot of them, they do this cleanup work, they manage these events for volunteers, and they really want their data to be useful. So first and foremost, they're really excited that these data are being used for real world solutions and tools and things that they can use as well. So a lot of our partners, they work on a pretty meager budget, and they may not have the tech savvy skills that these tech teams possess to really leverage all of this massive data set that we've brought together as a community, including the International Coastal Cleanup data set that Ocean Conservancy manages. So some of the tech tools I definitely foresee a lot of our International Coastal Cleanup partners utilizing. They've talked a lot about how they want to understand better about how their volunteers' data affect or impact policy change. They talk a lot about how they want to get more university and college students involved in different campuses and kind of closed off like bubbles such as those involved. So all of these tools really will be useful for the swath of our partners worldwide.
Awesome. And one more question for you, if you can answer in around under a minute. How do you see these tools supplementing the work that's already being done and the existing advocacy on the ground around this topic?
Absolutely. Just leveraging everything that's already taking place. You know, like I said, a lot of our partners, they are hungry for this information, and they just didn't have, you know, the savvy to be able to form these platforms, and so they will utilize them to better improve their cleanup efforts, to better get the word out there, to improve the data that they are collecting, and hopefully the more data they collect, the better the tools will be too. So it's a wonderful positive cycle.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your insights, Sarah. The tools sound like they're heading in a promising direction and filling a need. So thank you so much for all your time with us in the sprint. I'll now turn it over to Susan Mudd. Susan, we thank you for your energy and thoroughness throughout how you engage with the students at the Opportunity Project University Sprint. In regards to the tools created around helping the public understand the effects of transportation emissions on air quality, and given your years of experience in the air quality and transportation emissions field, as well as in policy, working with the Environmental Law and Policy Center, and your special focus on protecting the community and children's health, very similar question. What stands out to you about the products that you have been a part of shaping and how it affects the communities that you work with?
As transportation is now the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in the US and a major source of ground level smog precursors, it thus contributes to both deadly and rampant chronic diseases such as asthma and COPD, as well as climate change. But the everyday decisions about how people and products move are often disconnected from these realities. Here in Chicago, where I work with the Environmental Law and Policy Center, we're at the crossroads of the major railroads, interstates, as well as 2 major airports. So our residents are impacted every day by poor air quality generated by the legacy equipment, freight-related delivery vehicles, diesel trains and buses, as well as automobile emissions. As is true in many places, frontline residents and essential workers' health are especially poorly impacted. The Sprint tools each highlight an important aspect of current lived experience and can be used to help us transition to cleaner practices, better policies, and healthier air for all community residents. For example, OpenAQ gives context on national and international scale of air quality averages. I especially appreciate that in developing that, they reference both US and World Health Organization standards. AirMotion DC stands out for combining numerous data sets into useful, accessible information for 3 quite different DC area user types. I wish they'd done it for Chicago, and I hope they still will. Better air, better schools. In the US, more children ride school buses than people ride all other transit combined. Although safety of those buses has been a focus of attention, fixing the poor air quality inside them has lagged. While curriculum on zero-emission electric buses is being developed for older students by Michigan teachers, Better Air, Better Schools is the first program I'm aware of aimed at young students to help them understand the air that they're exposed to every day when they ride diesel buses to and from school.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. I'm really appreciative of how you pulled those examples out, and sounds like there's a lot of unique products that got developed. One more question for you very quickly. Similar to Sarah, how do you see these tools supplementing existing work to help the public understand the effects of all of this?
So 2 I'll point out. AirMotion DC can help DC residents, government officials, and researchers make more fully informed choices on daily commutes and policy decisions. I hope it'll help to get more support for DC Metro, mass transit, biking and walking, all of which should work well in DC's moderate climate. Better Air, Better Schools could be introduced to young students and help them, their teachers and parents, understand the health impacts of continued reliance on diesel, such as triggering a classmate's asthma attack, and it's adding fuel to climate change. Through learnings such as these, they may become advocates for zero-emission electric school buses and the funding needed for the transformation away from diesel buses. As today's young students are the generation that will be living with climate change impacts, it's time they are empowered to seek these needed changes.
Thank you, Susan. So inspiring. Very excited to see all these products hit different regions and hopefully get to Chicago as well. Our cohort definitely appreciates your experience in this space and your wonderful storytelling throughout all our different calls. So thank you for being with us. I'll now turn it over to Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Lucas, we really appreciate all the time you took to make sure our tech teams were up to speed to help build within the problem statement, building effective and efficient markets for recycled materials. From a city government standpoint and coming from work within the City of Phoenix's Public Works program as the operation manager for a program that provides trash, recycling, and other waste collection to more than 400,000 households, what do you feel is the most meaningful aspect about these tools that end users that you work with can benefit from?
Sure, thank you, Dominica. And I wanted to start off by thanking all of the tech teams that have been involved. So that's Public Block, SAP, Zero Cycle, and Resource Recycling Systems. From my perspective working in government, it's been very impressive to see how quickly they were able to develop these tools. But in terms of the few that we worked with, transparency was huge for us. So I work in a business where we don't really necessarily see all of the transactions that are taking place when we sell our recyclables or our commodities. So having these tools drastically improves our transparency of transactions, competition. So I've always been a fan of competition. It drives up the efficiency and then it lowers our costs. So this increases the competition to obtain those commodities. And then finally, the sharing of information. Again, as a government employee working in this space, normally we're doing a lot of our business with private contractors, so we don't see the transactions taking place. So it's kind of like, well, we know it's happening, we just don't know where it's going and how much it's being paid for and whatnot. So when we share more of that information, it then informs me to then inform my constituents, which are the public, which is very important for the city of Phoenix.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucas. Another question we have for you is, what do you see as the potential impact of these tools in the communities within Phoenix or other city governments alike?
Sure. So it kind of tags along with the previous answer, but it goes back to customer service. So the more informed I am as a government employee and someone that represents our department, the more I can help educate our community on what's going on behind the scenes, whether it's, what's recyclable in our programs, how much we're able to sell the commodities for, and then also long term, hopefully it helps reduce some of our costs. So that may be a tax, but it also increases revenue. So if we know how much someone wants of our material, we can then help broker that and maybe bring up some of the costs based on the volume we sell. It allows us to build trust with our constituents. So if they know what's going on, as well as just the city employees, that information again is shared. And then finally, I'll bring it back to our commodities. So working in the space of owning a recycling facility and working with not only the education, but moving materials, understanding the flow of those materials, where those materials go and how much we're able to sell them for, again, better helps me push that information back to the public. And then again, reduce our costs, but also increase revenues that hopefully keep our taxes down long term.
Wonderful, Lucas. Sounds like trust, transparency, and sharing knowledge is really, really important for you guys. And since we have an extra minute, do you have any ideal next steps that you'd like to see come out of this sprint and for these products that you've worked with?
Yeah, so we're actually in communication with one of them right now to see if they can do a study at one of our recycling facilities to see how well it's performing, not only with our staffing, but in terms of the equipment. And so that's one of the benefits of being involved with this program is we can work with those companies, these tech teams, to develop those products that hopefully we can then become the customer. And so that's important. And I think the more we work with them, the more they can define their tools and then hopefully help us refine our processes and again, reduce costs and hopefully keep our taxes down long term.
Thanks, Lucas. Your wisdom on this topic has been super critical to make these products a success. So thank you for your participation with us. And last but certainly not least, we have Ming. Hi, Ming.
Hi.
Hi. We really appreciate all the groundedness you provided and the perspective you brought to our NAEP problem statement cohort. You came from a really strong you do come from a really strong academic background as a professor of geography and GI science at Northwest Missouri State University, specializing in data, precision agriculture, and teaching classes around NAEP and teaching classes about NAEP within your classrooms. So for the tools that were created to address this problem statement, sorry about that, I had a bug come up. So for the tools that were created around this to help support farmers to make more meaningful decisions, what do you feel is the most meaningful aspect about these tools that end users can benefit from?
Thank you, Dominica. Let me further thank all the tech teams for developing those tools. I'm in academia, so my perspective may be a little bit different from other speakers here. But the university that I'm with, Northwest Missouri State University, is a regional university in a rural area. Our students are mostly local kids, farmers. They are not computer savvy at all. They rather go out in field playing with dirt, doing the soil sampling or working on farm and the animals. When we talk about the precision agriculture and the things involving modern technology, we can always see their hesitations. Even when they are operating computers or in their face, we can see their hesitations. NAEP is an important data in precision agriculture, so we got to use it in our teaching. In current setting, NAEP data is available free of charge, but there are steps to go through in order to get the data, see the data, or use the data. It is not easy for our students to go through all these steps to get the NAP data in a regular basis. And the tools developed here is much easier. NAP data can be seen through web browser with friendly graphic user interface, and the users can use a regular zoom in, zoom out, or pen to navigate through the data and get to the study area. Those tools, they already help our students to overcome the hesitation toward modern technology. They are great help for our students in learning precision agriculture.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And you already touched on a lot of this, Ming, but I'm curious to hear, how do you see these tools potentially fitting into the academia world within your classroom, which you touched on, but beyond your classroom as well? And what would you like to see as the ideal next steps?
Our students are the next generation farmers. Tools developed here are already a great help to our students in learning and understanding precision agriculture. If I may, there are things that can make it better. Most NAP data only has regular RGB natural color. It may help to have to include a near-infrared wavelengths, which is very important in monitor the crop status. If near-infrared wavelengths is available, tools may include functions to do a color infrared display or false color display in addition to regular natural color display. Also, with near-infrared, tools can include functions to calculate vegetation indexes to see which portion of the field they have healthy vegetation and which portion of field their vegetation is not so healthy as others. It is also helpful that tools have functions to alternate between different years to compare this year versus next year and not next year, last year or the year before. And of course, if tools are available on smartphones so that farmers or students can look at the NAP image while they are working on field, they would be great.
That's awesome. And one more question for you, Ming. In terms of potential impact, I know you talked a lot about students, but what do you see as a potential impact for farmers and ranchers because of students' interaction and being able to have more ease of use with these products?
Right. I was taught that even though the precision agriculture help our environment a lot and our food security production a lot, a fundamental challenge is to get farmers to know precision agriculture and adapt precision agriculture. So those tools, they are great help for education, and they are also great help for current farmers that understand what the precision agriculture can do for them. So it's not only for industry, but also for university education as well.
Thanks, Ming. Thank you for your knowledge and being a part of our cohort and sharing all of your wisdom and guiding the cohort on where these tools can potentially go next. And thank you everybody for joining this panel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to this extraordinary group of community experts for sharing your perspectives and your thoughts on how these solutions can have the most impact. You certainly have demonstrated exactly why the user advocate role is an instrumental part of our sprint process. So next up, we highly encourage everyone to head over to live demos on a platform called Hopin. It's our virtual exhibit hall. There you'll be able to see product demos of all of these tools, meet the teams who built them, and have time for questions and discussion. In addition to the 11 products you've seen throughout the lightning talks today, there's more you can explore at live demos. Like Code for Tucson's product, Sea Scavenger, which highlights the issue of ocean plastics pollution through an interactive game for all age groups. 2 products from George Mason University, one that's called Pollution Policy Watch, which visualizes the effect of plastic bans on coastal plastic pollution for policymakers and advocates. And Airware, which helps people looking to move identify areas with better air quality as it relates to respiratory issues and other health challenges. You'll also see the NAPE downloader and education modules from GeoSearch. that lowers the barrier to learning about agricultural imagery for farmers. And finally, a product called True Cycle MRF by Resource Recycling Systems, or RRS, who developed a process for grading and certifying material recovery facilities based on the supply chain and community relationships, factors such as recyclable material sorting and preparation process for manufacturers. So after live demos, we'll see you back here live on YouTube at 3 p.m. Eastern for the rest of demo week day 1. Thank you and see you soon. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to our next session, Igniting Civic Tech Innovation for the Next Generation. My name is Anna Valuev and I'm Head of Strategic Initiatives for the Opportunity Project. This year, TOP facilitated its first sprint focused entirely on university teams. The university sprint featured 10 student teams from courses, innovation centers, and student organizations at schools across the nation. We have been absolutely blown away by the incredible work of these university tech teams, which only further highlighted the power of our next generation to catalyze change through data and technology. In fact, you may have heard 4 of these teams present earlier today during the Earth Day Everyday session. If you missed them, don't worry, 2 more will present tomorrow. Because the students in the university sprint were so impressive, we wanted to give them the floor to share more about their work and perspectives. We're thrilled to be joined by Andreen Soley, Director of New America's Public Interest Technology University Network, to moderate a discussion among 3 students from the university sprint teams. Andreen, your work inspires us to find new and better ways to empower civic technologists to improve the world around them. Thank you for joining us, and now I will turn it over to you to give an overview of the Pitt University Network as well as to introduce today's panelists. Over to you, Andreen.
Hello, hi everyone. As Hannah has so helpfully done, she's let you know that I'm coming in from the Public Interest Technology University Network, PIT-UN for short. We are part of New America, a think tank based in Washington, D.C. PIT-UN is currently a network of 36 universities and colleges working to build the field of public interest technology on their campuses. Our goal is to offer courses, certificates, and degree programs that are at the intersection of technology and policy. Many of them, we hope, are going to be inspiring the kinds of students that you are going to be listening to today. So these programs are intended to include students who want to use their technical skills and knowledge in the pursuit of the public good, but it's also intended to include students who may be coming from disciplines like law, social science, ethics, or policy, who seek to understand the impact of technology and new technological innovation on society. We have an open application period each fall for new colleges and universities, so please do check out newamerica.org/PIT to find out more about PIT-UN, and also to find out if this is an opportunity that you'd like to take advantage of as universities and colleges. I'm excited to learn more about the projects of our panelists, so let's get started. Our first panelist is Lucas Chu, a sophomore from Harvard College. Our second panelist is Nicole Clark, a senior from Villanova University and a member of Youth Mappers. And our third panel is Ivan Stoikov, a senior from George Mason University. Great, I see all of our teams are here. Wonderful to see you all. I'm looking forward to learning more about your projects. So let's get started. Lucas, tell me a little bit about the organization that participated in the sprint and the product you built, as well as your inspiration for getting involved in civic tech.
Sure, thank you so much, Andreen. So I lead the Harvard IOP STEAM team to visualize Ghost Gear. Let's unpack that. So first, IOP stands for Institute of Politics, which is a student-run organization for civic engagement. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math, which is a movement to bring design and engineering together. And Ghost Gear is lost oceanic fishing equipment. Our team is completely volunteer. And when we learned that more than 650,000 marine animals are killed or injured in fishing nets every year, we knew we had to help. So for our product, the Ghost Gear project, We compiled information on lost fishing gear, conducted deep learning on federal open data sets to, one, show the severity, but two, also predict ghost gear buildup, and also set up education materials to send out to a lot of the stakeholders for them to get a more comprehensive picture on regulations, solutions, as well as a lot of the problem areas in terms of who's involved and what sort of solutions and supply chain partners already exist. And my inspiration for Civic Tech actually comes from a while ago. In high school, I never did any research. I wasn't even involved in tech, but when I came to college, I saw just how much interest and how many different opportunities there were available in such, I guess, undersaturated field that I knew that this was a great way to have a value add.
Thanks for that, Lucas. And Nicole.
Yes, I was a part of the Youth Mappers team. Youth Mappers is an international university organization which organizes community leaders, researchers, and students to create and use open source data and mapping tools that address locally defined development challenges across the world. And the Youth Mappers team was only a 2-person team, myself and a student from Arizona State University. And we created a product relating to broadband transparency. In collaboration with Benzie County, Michigan, we designed a speed test that citizens can take to see if they are getting the speed and service that they are paying for with their internet service provider. So we designed a website called True Connections that allows citizens to upload their speed test in a blog format to start a conversation with other people in their communities about connection disparities. Because based on our research, we found that there was a connection gap for people in rural communities. And I got involved with TOP because I applied at an internship at Youth Mappers. And when I didn't get it, the representative put me in contact with the coordinator at TOP. And when I read the description for the project, I was immediately interested.
Thanks for that. I really appreciate it, Nicole. I like to see that you were connected to something else, even though an initial experience didn't work out. And then Ivan, could you talk a little bit about your experiences and what drew you to Civic Tech?
Thank you. I'm a student from George Mason University's Plastic Pollution Tech team, led by Dr. Dominic White. And we are all part of the Computational and Data Science Department at George Mason University's College of Science. The class we were involved in was an unorthodox independent study where we took part in the Census Bureau's Opportunity Project. We were guided towards a real-world goal by activists, government officials, data stewards, and entrepreneurs. The class was separated into 2 teams. Half the class focused on a challenge around helping the public to better understand the effects of transportation emissions and developed a dashboard that can help individuals decide where to find a home based on the air quality in the area. My half of the class addressed an ocean plastic pollution challenge with the help of the State Department and the Wilson Center. We developed an interactive dashboard that can show how plastic legislation impacts plastic pollution in the United States. And you can go to the website, which is pollutionpolicywatch.com. As part of this effort, we also updated the Earth Challenge 2020 dataset with up-to-date data, as well as incorporated the new Literati and Marine Litter Tracker datasets into it. As for what inspired me to get involved, I think that working on a project that has a real-world impact is inspiring enough by itself. It might require more work, like coming up with a product idea, where in a conventional class assignment, that's a given. And there's a much steeper learning curve, but knowing that my work isn't just serving my self-interest and is not gonna sit in a professor's office gathering dust, it was inspiring and helped me get much more involved and proactive during the sprint. And if that's not enough, we've had the opportunity to speak with world-leading specialists and activists, and just getting to know these people and they're seeing their drive and motivation for what they do is by itself very, very inspiring.
Thank you so much for that, Ivan. I want to make sure that other students have the same experiences that you've just identified. So Nicole and Lucas, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the biggest barriers to students getting in experience in civic tech, and how do you think that translates to barriers in just pursuing opportunities in civic tech in general? Let's start
Sure.
out with you, Nicole.
I think opportunity is the biggest barrier for students getting involved in civic tech. We live in such a competitive age that it almost feels like you have to be the best of the best, even at 20 years old, just to be successful. And experience is so valued when you're looking for that first job. And, God forbid you don't have an internship in college, it feels like you're already so far behind. So it's inclusive organizations like TOP that give students the chance to brainstorm and network and create something that is bigger than themselves, especially for students like myself who were a little lost in the beginning of college and didn't quite have a clear path until later. I was able to create something tangible that I was proud of at a time where it almost felt like it was too late.
Thanks for that. And Lucas?
Yeah, in short, connections to inspire. So if you look at the opportunity project, both opportunity, but also projects, so that students really feel that they can learn, that even if they have an interest, that they have the ability to get the skills, or if they do have the skills, they have an ability to meet a lot of these people and be able to develop that interest. So that means getting support, to be encouraged, to contact different stakeholders, to be able to actually get that experience in civic tech. And that also means having role models, other supports like professors that are encouraging them, as well as companies and programs, much like Pitt, that are really serving as a pipeline. And then also thinking about really incentives in terms of showing how big of a problem exists, and how students can really bring their youth and energy to solve that.
Thanks for that. And Nicole spoke a little bit about sort of opportunities being the real key here. So I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that. Ivan and Lucas, what do you see as the role of universities or colleges in helping to create opportunities for students to apply their tech skills for the public good? And start out with you, Ivan.
So I only found out about the topic of the independent study course that Dr. White was leading, and its involvement in the opportunity project, because I emailed my professor directly and was proactive in my approach. So that's something simple that every student can do for themselves. Unfortunately, not all students take this initiative. So overall, I wish that these types of classes were offered more openly and were better advertised at colleges. Of course, with project-based courses, especially when they have a real-world implications, there's a much steeper learning curve, and they often require more time outside of class than a typical course. However, the payoff and experience gained from participating in a sprint like this is much greater than taking an ordinary class, which I believe will then later translate into a more seamless transition from academics into a workplace. I think that classes that are involved with any type of sprint, hackathon, or other hands-on learning opportunities in which students are exposed to a real-world problem are much more educational and prepare us a lot better for what waits after graduation. So if universities work with organizations like the Census Bureau to offer more of these classes, and possibly let tech teams work on a problem statement for more than just a semester, that would allow for more students to be involved in civic technology, provide us with better and greater networking possibilities, increase the value of our education, and allow us a natural transition into open source tech projects after graduation.
Thanks for that. There were a lot of really, really great ideas there. I hope some of the universities are listening and colleges are listening. How about you, Lucas? What are some of the role that you think universities and colleges can play in creating these opportunities?
Yeah, the intersection of social good and technology is very in vogue right now for students, but not exactly in universities yet, as they're focusing in terms of more theoretical work, especially for the classes. And what I've noticed when I came to college is that almost anybody can apply and do a lot of this like basic research, and that's not really the case. And I think it should be the case for these academic civic tech projects, that they have pipelines where at any step in the road, you're able to work on something that's novel, that actually helps people, that, as Ivan said, doesn't just collect dust. And what I've seen is student organizations do this in like a really, really strong manner. And then we're seeing federal agencies, especially now with top, these opportunities being amazing. But then with universities, what's missing is really the connection and the funding. And I think Harvard did it well because we have like innovations lab, accelerators, funds, civic tech challenges, and a lot of the bureaucracy that encourages students to connect all of these three aspects. And I think if we could expand that and make that really pressing across the nation, only good can come from that.
Well, thanks for that, Lucas. I think you've given us our marching orders, because in many ways, that's exactly the goal of the Public Interest Technology University Network, is to create these kind of experiences for all students, so that they don't have to count on just one individual that may have pointed them in the right direction, that there'll be advertisements across their campuses offering up these opportunities. So that's the work ahead for us. So thanks for giving us a mandate on that. Nicole and Ivan, I'd love to have you all talk about, sort of as digital students, how do you expect technology to evolve as part of your lives? We were talking discreetly about sort of the public good, but maybe pulling back a little bit and thinking a little bit bigger picture. We'll go with you, Nicole.
I think technology will become much more prominent than it already is now. With that being said, I'm still an advocate for in-person interactions and field work. I wouldn't want to live in a world where the majority of people work from home by choice. I think there's still something special about having spontaneous interactions and commuting and such, but I think the last few months have shown us that there doesn't need to be such a learning or labor gap for those who maybe don't have the means to get to work or school for whatever reason. So I think technology has the power to make situations easier, but it should be balanced where it doesn't completely take over our lives.
And Ivan.
I couldn't agree with Nicole more. I'm a huge fan of SpaceX and their Starlink project, where basically they're sending a large array of low orbit satellites that will allow for low latency internet connection all over the world, be it in remote places, third world countries, in the air, at sea, anywhere basically where you can look up at the sky. So I think, well, I hope that that will allow us for more flexibility with where we work and the people that we work with. Considering how the difficulties we faced over the past year have made us much more open to collaboration, I believe that that extra degree of freedom will allow for new incredible projects all over the world featuring bright minds that might have been unreachable until now. The connectedness we've had through the internet so far has allowed us to expand our horizons and open up to projects which we would never have noticed otherwise. So because of this, I think that there will be an evolution in the digital workspace. And as a consequence, we'll see an increase in international distance working and learning opportunities. Open source projects like the ones that all of us on this panel have been working on will become much more involved, where the combined knowledge base of the team will be as diverse, if not even more so, than in some big companies right now. And the result of that will be beyond what I can imagine.
Thanks for that. And I'm curious about this piece a little bit, and this may be springing this a little bit on, is just like, do you worry about some of the students who may have had challenges connecting online, and what that might mean? And do either of you all feel comfortable just kind of tapping in a little bit and saying how you think that we could, what experiences we can make available for those students?
So I think that the point that Nicole showed us is that not everyone works well in a digital environment. So some of us need person-to-person interaction, while other of people like me, I don't really need that. I don't crave for it, and I don't miss it all that much. So I'm more in my environment at home, just working on whatever I want to work on. And I I know that there's people that are the opposite of that. So I think that the point that Nicole made, that it shouldn't be all one thing, right? There should be opportunities for people to go online if they wish for that, and on the other hand, there should be places where people can meet up and exchange ideas in a same collective workplace. Yeah.
That's really wonderful. Lucas, I want to make sure that you hop in because I thought you might want to say something.
Yeah, I'm also a director at the Fair Opportunity Project and a research assistant at Opportunity Insights. A lot of opportunity. So for the first, we're looking at how can students be supported, especially academically when they're applying to colleges, completely different. And we're noticing that now students don't really care about these things that, would have been their dreams essentially, because they have to face all of these, harsh realities of today. And then with the economic tracker, so if you go to tracktorecovery.org, you'll see that in the spring, math progress, so total student participation in online math coursework across most states decreased by 50%. And right now it's still down 20%. And you'll see also, if you look at the geography, it is people that are living, in lower income counties that are being affected most, and especially students that are going to current schools that are either hybrid or not in person. So these tend to be marginalized students, are the most affected. And this is, of course, a great issue for Civic Tech to tackle it, because we're online now. And this is, of course, a hugely important issue for just the civic health of everyone.
Thank you so much for that. There are a lot of really great ideas there. So I'd love to ask each of you to respond to this for me. What is something that surprised you or that you learned from collaborators through TOP? And let's start with you, Ivan.
Okay, so what I learned that plastic pollution is much more complicated and more widespread than I originally thought. Recycling plastics is nowhere near as effective as it's made out to be. And for that reason, plastic is easily released into the environment, after which it becomes exponentially more difficult to deal with, because it breaks down to small enough particles that to be undetectable, but it doesn't completely break down so that it would not pose a threat to the environment or to wildlife. Burning plastic is another way of getting rid of it, but then we just transfer our plastic pollution problem to the air pollution team. So that doesn't really work. On top of that, unlike plastic, for which we can have cleanup events, like the ones that are promoted by apps like Literati, Earth Challenge, and CleanSwell, where you can see immediate results in an area after a cleanup, you can't do that with air pollution. And we don't want to make the problem more complicated than it already is. So I think the implication of that is that we need more manpower, more involvement, awareness, funding for civic projects, civic tech projects. There's no better way of understanding the intricacies of a problem than being involved in solving it. And I know that from experience. I noticed that I became much more meticulous in cleaning out my plastic food containers for recycling since I got involved with the Opportunity Project.
Thanks for that, Ivan. I love to see that immediate translation into changing your behavior in your life. Nicole.
So something that surprised me, and this came out of the user advocate research, was just seeing how many fields and industries there are and how many just cool jobs there are out there. I think for me, that was the most valuable part of the process. You go to school to get a degree to work in a field that you're passionate about, but connecting with so many people from different sectors of the EPA to nonprofits has shown me that there's really no straight and narrow path you need to take necessarily in order to be successful and to do something you care about. It's just about saying yes to different opportunities you're presented with and moving forward in the direction of your long-term goal.
That's a wonderful lesson. I hope everyone heard that, which is that, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do right away, right? And where you want to land. You can start in one sector and find yourself in another sector as you continue to explore the problems or issues that excite you. So thanks for saying that, Nicole. I really appreciate that. And Lucas, what about you?
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of want to echo what Ivan said. It's almost really depressing seeing how bad everything is. And that's why I was quite surprised at how approachable and wholesome and really energetic and optimistic everyone that we met was. And it was great that we were able to reach out to them and they'd respond immediately. We get to talk and really get to know what sort of solutions they're thinking of. And a lot of the times they were really focused on these quite novel solutions that I wouldn't have thought of by myself. And it really shows how if we come together, yes, it might take some time. Yes, now with Zoom and you can get fatigued, but we're basically allowed to do anything. And that gives us all this leeway to collaborate and actually, open source all of this for the benefit of everybody, because these are public good problems. So I'm actually going to be organizing my own TOPS, so sort of a product sprint for policy based on Arevna, which is a 501c3 nonprofit I created of over 3,000 student members. And as a result of TOP, we're actually changing it into a civic tech organization and hosting Students Improving Schools, which is a conference to try to see, can we do civic tech for education this weekend? So on Saturday, if anybody wants to join that.
Thanks for letting everyone know about other opportunities, Lucas. Any final thoughts about the experiences that you've had overall, and any encouragement you want to offer to any students thinking about doing this? Ivan, looks like you want to say, and then Nicole.
So yeah, like I said in one of the questions, I think every student should get involved in some sort of hackathon, sprint, or any type of hands-on learning opportunity like that, because I think they're very helpful. And even though it's hard work, it's very worth it. And you might even find a job, an internship, or something else through it, because you meet people. And that's half of why, if not all of why, you go to university, to do networking and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you. And Nicole, I'll finish up with you.
Yeah, going off of Lucas, like the value of partnerships between different sectors, like public, private, universities. I feel like I learned a lot about that in school, but actually being involved in one, it was so amazing to see all the ideas that flooded in when you start talking to people and exchanging ideas.
So thank you all. Thank you all three of you for this wonderful opportunity to learn more about your project. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Ivan. I'm also going to say thank you to your universities for facilitating this opportunity for you. And I'm hoping that we will have another opportunity to have this conversation again, maybe next year, because we'll see more universities participate in other opportunities like this. And this has been a wonderful opportunity for us to learn about the work that you've been doing, and I hope that you continue to do. And thank you again to Anna for inviting us to be on this platform today. So I will now hand it back to Hannah. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for your thoughtful answers to these important questions. We're so inspired and glad that you were able to collaborate this fall on these key environmental challenges. We absolutely cannot wait to see where your passions take you. And we're so lucky to have such an inspiring next generation paving the path forward. And thank you so much, Andreen, for facilitating this really fruitful conversation. Up next, don't miss today's closing session featuring 3 leaders with a critical message on how we can co-create technology and data systems to empower their tribal communities.
Hello and welcome to our final session of the day, Native Voices, What Do We Need to Hear? How Technology, Data, and Government Can Best Serve Tribal Communities, featuring Jacob Crane, Maria Howarth, and Jeffrey Blackwell. This session is a much anticipated discussion among respected tribal members who have worked for decades to empower their communities and help address challenges encompassing data and technology. Each of these panelists deserve to be acknowledged and celebrated in their own right, carrying out service to their communities with the utmost dedication and resilience. Since the onset of COVID, Native American communities have been amongst those hit the hardest from the pandemic, both from the virus itself as well as from the economic impacts. Native Americans also are one of the most traditionally undercounted groups in the nation during the census. Through all this, these communities continue on, attempting to rebuild and heal with immeasurable dignity and strength, though oftentimes with significantly less resources than others. The conversation around how we can create a more sustainable and healthier Earth would not be complete without voices from Indigenous communities, many who have worked tirelessly to engage in nature-based practices that work most intimately and harmoniously with the Earth, creating the original systems of sustainability that we all strive for. As global trends continue to shift towards more tech-centric problem solving, we wanted to take the time to recognize that the needs of tribal communities are often drastically different when it comes to technology. In this session, 3 members within tribal communities will provide more context on this topic, offer their insights on where things stand today, and what they'd like our audience to hear when it comes to technology, data, and more effective partnerships with government and beyond. Please join us in welcoming our panelists and listening to the important messages that they have to share. Throughout the panel, please feel free to drop questions on the YouTube chat. I will now turn it over to Maria Howarth, member of Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you. As she said, my name is Maria Howarth. I am honored to be a part of this panel today. I'm a proud member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I actually worked in tribal government for almost 13 years. Currently, I'm the tribal specialist and the senior customer success manager at Civic. We have grant solutions. I'm joined today by Jeffrey Blackwell, who is a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and also Jacob Crane, who's a citizen of the Tsuut'ina Nation, located in the province of Alberta, Canada. We've convened here today to discuss and share important needs and insights into tribal issues as it stands with technology, data, and partnership, and the importance of prioritizing these narratives in today's environment of collaboration and problem solving. Currently, there's 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. These citizens make up roughly 2% of the total US population. This doesn't even take into account the 66 or so state recognized tribes that add to that equation. The federally recognized tribes only receive roughly 1% of the federal funding in any given year. The only exception is this year, 2020, when tribes received roughly 5% of the coronavirus relief funds that were released in Title V of the CARES Act. Now, these tribes are located on reservations and in checkerboard land, which is what I am. I'm located in Oklahoma, which can create different issues when working with surrounded communities. It's especially difficult in making sure that Indian country is connected and able to bridge the Great Divide. And the visual that you're seeing right now shows that unmet need. During our presentations today, when you have a question, please write panel question in the box with your question. It's a lot of questions. Then, if times allow, at the end of the session, we'll be taking those questions from the audience. In a moment, I'll hand it off to Jacob and Jeffrey to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their stories. And then we're going to explore some more in-depth questions in the group. But first, here's a little bit about me and what I view. So as stated, I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation here in Oklahoma. I worked for our cousins, who are the Chickasaw Nation, for almost 13 years in a grant management capacity, also in the finance office and in a budget capacity. So by being in this grant world or this social service world, I was able to work on those social service programs. And we found that getting information to and from the citizens was sometimes hampered by connectivity. And tribes across the United States, transportation seems to be the #1 issue. The best way to get information from those who cannot travel would be using connectivity in the internet. But with tribes mostly being in rural areas, it's not always that simple. So today's discussion, you'll hear words like sovereignty and Indian country. So an abbreviated definition of both would be sovereignty is a legal word basically for an ordinary concept. It's the authority to self-govern. These inherent powers and self-government have repeatedly been affirmed by hundreds of treaties along with the Supreme Court, the President, and the Congress. Now, these treaties, these executive orders, and these laws have created a fundamental contract between tribes in the United States. Indian country, that means basically all the lands within the limits of an Indian reservation, or like us who don't live on a reservation but live in checkerboards, it's the dependent Indian communities within the borders of the United States. It also includes all Indian allotments, so it's the Indian titles which haven't been extinguished by Indian allotment. So now I want to go to the slide of the geographic locations in the US tribes. And I think you've already seen that slide. There we go. Let's go with that one. So this one is really a visual to show a map that census.gov did, and it reflects the areas with subscriptions to broadband. So one thing I want to bring attention is the areas with the orange circles. These are where concentrations of tribal nations are located. And I think you can see that there's a lot of white space within those orange circles. That's the areas where subscriptions are the lowest. Now, in my eyes, looking at this, if I was seeing it for the first time, it would be showing me a direct relation to a digital divide. I know that from experience of living here in Southern Oklahoma, that good connectivity is really hard to get into some homes, which is where the majority of us are right now. We're all at home. I personally, well, my family, my husband and I personally had to pay the cable company, our local cable company, to run access to our home so we would have connection. If we hadn't, we would not have had connectivity. No one else could do it. So my main message is I believe that bringing all of these issues into light are going to help get people to thinking of solutions not just for our country and our rural citizens, but solution for Indian country. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob. Jacob, take it away.
Dada Nifstada, Sise, Jacob Crane. Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Crane. I'm from the Tsuut'ina Nation, Alberta, Canada. And currently I'm living in Southern Utah on the Navajo Nation. And I just wanted to say, thank you so much for inviting me in to speak on this and to share my story. So I grew up in Tsuut'ina Nation in my home community. That's on the southwest side of Calgary for many years until I was about 13 years old. And that's when I moved down to Utah, where I began working and going to school. And eventually I would go to university at Utah Valley University. And that's where I kind of started to take notice into tribal government back home and understanding what that really meant. And so I didn't really understand those things going into it. So taking my first internship when I was 23 with my chief at the time as his executive assistant, it really kind of opened my eyes up to what it meant to be a steward of not just the land, but a steward of your people. And so that's where my journey kind of began when I was 23. I'm 31 right now. And so I did several years coming in and out of my community at an executive level, but also as a youth advisor to the chief, understanding what economic development meant towards Indian country and also to my tribal community. So it was an interesting conversation that would take place afterwards, and that I was kind of brought into some of those circles where I kind of started to notice that there's priorities and then there's priorities. And so it was interesting to kind of get exposed to that at an early age. And now I live on the Navajo Nation. I've taken a position with the SLC Air Protectors, and I'm currently their executive director for the SLC Air Protectors, and they're a local nonprofit out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And our mission is to focus on environmental justice, air quality, and Native American stewardship. So we really like to support our Native American peoples and supporting them, whether it's leadership, food initiatives, food drives. That's kind of what we do. So there's been a big difference, of course, from the slides that you're seeing in the pictures, the green lush of where my tribal community is located, but also to the the desert landscape that you also see, which is very rich with resource, and it's a beautiful place. I love spending time in southern Utah. And for the last couple of years, last couple of months now, we've been doing a ton of COVID-19 relief work. Our nonprofit organization does food drives. We do a lot of running down to the reservation to support them as far as dropping food off non-contact. We try to be as safe as we can when we go into the community, but as well as making sure that we're doing sustainable impact, social positive impact in the community. So we've also done a lot of gardening initiatives, as well as advocating for Native tribes in the area. So we always try to put Native American people first and foremost, because that's goes to the heart of the organization. And so I love working in Indian country. It's been a lot of fun. It's brought a lot of eye-opening experiences, and I'm so glad to be able to share a little bit about me when talking about this issue. And I really hope that everybody listening today can kind of take a little bit back to where they go, where they work, or different people, and spread the messages and the information that's going to be shared today. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to turn the time over to Jeff. I know he's got a lot of things to say, and I want to say thank you, Maria, for letting me speak, and to the organizers, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing the discussions that take place today.
Heshche Chokma. My name is Jeffrey Blackwell, and it is a great honor and privilege to join the panel today. I want to begin by recognizing a lady who turns out we're probably cousins from Southern Oklahoma, because I too am part Choctaw, and Maria and I found out earlier that we both worked for the Chickasaw Nation at one point in time, and very our esteemed distant cousin from northern Canada, from well north of us, but who also lives in a place that I know very well, Navajo Nation. Again, greetings, Heshche Chokma, Saholchafat Jeffrey Blackwell. I'm an enrolled member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. I also happen to be descended from the Omaha tribe of Nebraska, the Chickasaw Nation, and the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. So, and I'm reminded by Maria's opening of one of the probably most important and oldest jokes in Indian country. What are the first three words that an American Indian baby learns? Is mama, papa, and auntie. So if there is anything that you have taken from the first few slides of this program, understanding sovereignty is a very important component of who we are as Indian people. And really it is tied to both our past and our future. We have endured amazing histories, very difficult histories, find ourselves in some of the most remote but pristine and beautiful parts of the United States, and are experiencing, particularly within my lifetime, an extraordinary rebirth of our opportunities. So I work as the Chief Strategy Officer and General Counsel for Ameren Risk Management. We are a household name in Indian country to tribal members. We are not very well known outside of Indian country. Ameren is essentially Indian country's insurance company. We insure about 14 billion in property alone in Indian country. After insuring so many different types of infrastructures, a few years ago, our board of directors, which is comprised of housing directors from across the tribal nations in the United States, asked us to start giving back to tribes and to build a business line that was very non-traditional for us. We created a business called Ameren Critical Infrastructure. We looked at the three priorities that tribes were facing, three most challenging priorities that they had given to the Obama administration at the time. And one of them was transportation needs, another was energy needs, and the third was telecommunications needs. I have a background in telecommunications. I used to work at the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, D.C. You have my bio on the website, so I'll only mention a couple things about that. But I was very fortunate. I went to work at the Federal Communications Commission as a much younger man, not long after the term digital divide, not long after that phrase was coined. So I have worked at some of the highest levels in government. As a senior attorney manager at the FCC, was responsible for the FCC's programs in its plan of attack for the digital divide in Indian country. I was born not far from where Jacob now resides on the Navajo reservation. Although I'm not Navajo, my parents were poor high school teachers and decided to have me at the Indian Health Hospital there. So for particularly for an Omaha, where one comes into this world, is very important. So some of those pictures will resonate. After about having a foot in Washington, my family having a foot in Washington, D.C. for almost 30 years, and my wife and I personally for 20 years, we decided to move back to the Southwest. And the picture that I have in my background is the view from our back porch up of the Sandia Mountains. We live on the historical lands of the Pueblo people of northern New Mexico, particularly those of the Sandia Pueblo. I actually went from living right outside Washington, D.C. Now I drive across 2 Indian reservations to go to work every day, and have personally experienced a lot of the digital divide challenges that we'll be talking about. I can tell you from my own past experience, there are a few more just basic details I would give you about Indian country. In the contiguous 48 states, there are 310 Indian reservations. There are another 229 Alaska Native villages. And then we do have cousins, indigenous cousins in Hawaii that have approximately about 70 Hawaiian homelands that are likened to our reservations. I've had the great honor and privilege of being able to set foot on about 240 of those 310 reservations in the United States, and about 40 of the Alaska Native villages and about 20 Hawaiian homelands, and have personally experienced the digital divide. We'll be talking about the needs and the experiences, the great wonderful opportunity that you have with this Opportunity Tech Meetup. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Census Bureau, and to Dominica and to Chelsea of the National Gaming Association for helping pull this panel together. I look forward to the discussion. I have prepared some slides that'll help describe some of the experience, and I look forward to your questions as well. So with that, I will turn it back to Maria.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jeff. That was great. I love hearing where everybody's from. I love hearing what they see. I have friends from the Navajo Nation, and so I learned a lot of good things from them too. So this is exciting. All right, so we're ready to go right into the questions. All right, so number 1, can you describe where tribal communities are today compared to the rest of the country in regards to how technology is used, or even discuss the capability to fully utilize technology on tribal lands? So let's tackle number 1 as a group.
So I can help take an initial crack at this if you like.
Sure.
So it's really important what Maria mentioned earlier about Indian country and the definition of Indian country. It's both a legal term and a colloquial term that we use to refer to all those places out there that are American Indian by nature. And we do indeed inhabit lands of various types of legal standing. A lot of folks recognize reservations. In Oklahoma, where I spent some serious time growing up, and there are lands that were former reservations that were then disassembled into individual parcels. You heard Maria refer to them as allotments. There are similar historical policies that Canada followed after seeing the United States followed, where the basic idea was to make American Indians Indian Americans and to make big, large, contiguous land holdings individual parcels. Not unlike the idea of emancipated slaves after the Civil War, it was more like trying to make folks, American Indians, agrarian tax-paying farmers. It happened to turn out to be one of the most failed land policies in the history of the United States, where millions and millions of acres passed out of Indian hands. But the modern aspect is now that we find ourselves sometimes very remote, but very close. You can be in a very different jurisdiction and right across the road from some place that has technology circa 2020, but right across the road on an Indian reservation, you might have technology circa 1972 or even worse, 1947. So yes, it is. There are very remote places. There are places that, just as you imagine, where there's the last, virgin timber, or the last, unspoiled wilderness. But sometimes that legal difference also creates a big disparity.
I would
Back over to
agree.
you, Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob, did you have an answer for that?
No, I was just going to say I totally agree as well. And I think I'm just going to give a personal story really quickly. It's interesting because my nonprofit's based out of Salt Lake City. So I'll be traveling down to do food, delivery to the Navajo Nation. And all of a sudden, once I hit the Navajo Nation, my calls start dropping. And even right now, I'm turning my hotspot on from my cell phone to my iPad so that I can talk to you folks out there in DC and around the country. So this is the reality that I'm living in right now. So that's kind of interesting. And I look over to my right and I see a stove that heats up the house. So yesterday I spent time cutting wood outside and then I stacked it. And then I brought that wood inside, and that's the only way that my house stays warm down here on the Navajo Nation. So just to kind of paint that visual for everybody, our audience, to see, although that we're very sophisticated in some areas, we're also a little bit behind in certain areas. And so the place is beautiful. I love the Navajo Nation. My wife is Navajo. They welcome me into their tribe. And so I'm, that's the only story that I can kind of share to help paint that picture for the folks that are watching.
Yeah, and I can give the aspect from the checkerboard area. So I do have family, they had allotments when they did that here in Oklahoma. And so we live where there may be service everywhere, but the majority of our tribal citizens live in rural areas. And so by living in that rural area, you have less connectivity. And we don't want to go all living just in a city just so we can have internet service, So the people that are on the reservation struggle. The people that live in the rural areas struggle. And like I said, it may not necessarily be a tribal issue. It may just be, and a lot of times it is. But there's also where you go into the tribal facilities, they may have better connectivity. Well, we can't all go sit in a tribal facility every day either, So to me, there is some issue there on how we can get better capability. Jeff, did you have a good slide for this one?
I do have a slide. I'd be happy to show it. It kind of illustrates the remoteness of any country. Hold on just a second. I knew you would ask, so let me see if I can show it.
I should have teed you up, huh?
Not a problem. Not a problem. Let me bring up that. Let me bring up that PowerPoint. Can you all see that right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a series of slides, and I'll just show the first one. That is actually a fiber trencher that is out in the middle of the pueblo of Santo Domingo, New Mexico. If you look to the left, you'll see the little the map of New Mexico. These are two projects that we worked on to help some schools and libraries in those pueblo communities get fiber for education. Remoteness is a significant challenge. There's no question about it. And it really has variables from place to place. Where Maria is in Oklahoma, the State Department of Transportation, Oklahoma, because of the way it was settled, is crisscrossed by roads. And it is settled very differently than New Mexico. In Oklahoma, you're never truly remote.
7 miles away from any town at any given time.
Yeah, there's so many little towns and so many little stoplights and so many. But years ago, the State Department of Transportation put in backbone fiber. So it is really, it's very dependent on region. And then there are places, and you saw in Jacob's presentation, even more remote than what you're looking at right here. But that was There are about, on this side of that picture, there are about 100 tribal leaders, education, children, family, everybody cheering these guys. They made them stop so they could give them some coffee and keep them working all day long. But
Yeah,
that is what a fiber trencher looks like out in the middle of Indian country. So thanks.
Because, you know, some of our top priorities are education, healthcare, housing, safe living. If we can't get basic connectivity out to our schools, how are they going to learn and be up with the others? So
Exactly.
I think that maybe we can move on to the second question. You guys ready for that?
Mm-hmm.
So what barriers or obstacles exist right now that create the digital divide for tribal communities? And why do these barriers exist? So what causes the digital divide and why do they exist? Who wants to go first?
Do you mind if I take a crack at this one?
Go for it, Jacob.
So I think a lot has to do with like location, geographic location. So for example, my tribe, which is on the southwest side of Calgary, we're literally across the road. So broadband, although it is an issue on my tribe, say the priority list, it's more down towards the bottom because we live so close to Calgary. But say on the Navajo Nation, one thing that the pandemic kind of revealed is that we need broadband out here. We need access to internet. I mean, I kind of just shared my story about how I'm using my hotspot right now to get internet from my iPad. So that's something that needs to be addressed, talked about a little bit. So a lot has to do with the geographic location, but also the priority list. And to bring internet out to Tsuut'ina Nation from the city of Calgary would be a little bit smaller in budget, whereas the Navajo Nation, to bring broadband out here, to fiber optic cables, everything out, the budget seems to be enormous. Yeah. And so there that will drive the divide a little bit more open. What do you think, Jeff?
And it's supply and demand a little bit, maybe? I mean, you know, kind of.
Absolutely.
Did you?
I do think at one level, the barriers and obstacles are deeply related to the way that we have chosen as a nation to deploy this critical infrastructure across this large continent. And we have largely relied on either public or private corporations through a massive licensing and subsidy mechanisms from the federal government. So whether they are one of the big telecom carriers, and in the West, there's CenturyLink, I think is now called Lumen. In the East, Verizon. And it used to be the old Ma Bells. You know, in Oklahoma, it was Southwestern
Bell.
Southwestern Bell, yeah. So, so sometimes it is a tough business model to deploy. And Jacob mentioned earlier, you know, as soon as you get close to Navajo Nation, your calls start dropping. That's largely because, I mean, one of the root causes is wireless services in the United States have largely been deployed where there is population density. And not just population density that is relatively affluent, that can afford. You know, if folks can remember when wireless services came out, nobody ever imagined that anybody would give up their wireline telephone at home. And the phones were $1,000. Actually, we're back to the wireless phones being $1,000 again. But the whole idea was that wireless was going to be a luxury or a emergency necessity. And now it's become an absolute way of life. I mean, humans have adopted wireless service faster than they did the wheel.
Right.
So there are a couple of slides I have, I think, that can illustrate some of these barriers, and then we can talk more about why they exist. If you'd like me to show those now about some of the statistics about the digital divide.
I think for getting people to understand what the digital divide is, I think it might be good.
Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint.
Because I think people really, you hear digital divide, they're like, well, what is that? And it
yeah,
really, it is a real thing.
Yeah, it is a term that has changed a great deal over time. So this is, these are some basic statistics that come from the FCC's most recent broadband deployment report. And this is about broadband speeds. And broadband is measured by two numbers. The first number is download speed. The second is upload speed. This is the current definition, legal regulatory definition of broadband in the United States, 25.3. So 25 down, 3 up. Almost 30% of people living on tribal lands have no access to broadband as defined by the federal government. This isn't super fast broadband that a lot of people have in different parts of densely populated, cities. Only 6% nationwide lacks access to 25 down, 3 up. And it gets even worse in places where Jacob is, and I know he feels this every day. Almost 50% of people living in rural tribal lands have no access to 25.3. That's compared to 22% nationwide. And that is one of the members of the herd of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, for those who remember Standing Rock and their wonderful fight for their water rights, and ours too. This is comes from a study. I would encourage folks to take a look at it. The American Indian Policy Institute at Arizona State University has made connectivity one of their highest priorities. It's a research institution headed up by a Chickasaw, by the way, Dr. Tracy Morris. This is a reality of a study that they did recently on a tribal technology assessment, and there was a lot of participation of folks from our three respective regions of Indian country. You can just take a look at some of this. 70% have telephone, just basic telephone. Then you move on to a device they use to access the internet. The digital divide is not just the lack of access, it's also the use of technology. I would say also, it's very importantly, the cost of technology.
That is exactly what I was fixing to add, was it's not just the availability, it's the ability to afford. And so getting that, I know that you have another graphic for that too, to show that even though it may be available, it doesn't mean that people can afford to get it in their homes.
So this just paints a picture of daily life and trying to get connectivity in Indian country. The top 3 locations that connect, I don't know a single person on a Western reservation that lacks cell service that won't tell you, if you ask them, all right, you have to take a turn down this road. You're going to go up to the top of a hill. Right there, there's 3 trees. If you stop right there and you have AT&T, you'll get service. But Verizon doesn't work there. You got to, everybody knows where the service is and isn't. This is a slide that basically, this comes from our own data. This comes from that project where you saw the trenchers. Mm-hmm. These on the left side are the current speeds that were experienced by those schools and libraries in megabits per second. That's the blue, that's the current, and that is the broadband speed that the fiber will bring to them in orange. Now, if you look at the other side, the blue, this is cost per, and keep in mind, the blue is the blue. The current costs versus the reduced cost when the tribe itself starts self-provisioning their own services.
My goodness. And that, I think that is a real telling slide right there.
So at Hamus Day School, for 9 megabits per second at the cost of $283 per month, they have gone down to $7, less than $7 for 100 megabits. So yeah, the cost associated, and the word that is used to refer to it in the regulatory context is affordability. Broadband at what cost?
Absolutely. Jacob, glad you made it back.
Literally.
His hotspot went down. So as we're talking about connectivity, he's living the issue.
I am living it. Believe me, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, guys. We should all try this out.
If you haven't been through a drop call, you need to do it. All right. So did you have any input on this, on what creates a digital divide and why it exists?
what creates a digital divide? I think
Mhm.
it all comes down to just the priorities and the location of the tribe. It's just what is the priorities in the tribe, and it's kind of hard to focus. Like, say for example, I'm here on the Navajo Nation, and some of the folks don't have clean water down here, and so that kind of that's got to be a priority.
Yeah.
Some of the there's not a lot of housing, so that's a priority. Employment, well, we need infrastructure for employment, so that's on the priority. And so if you kind of notice, broadband doesn't get talked about until now because of the pandemic.
Yes.
So it took the pandemic to bring about this awareness of the lack of broadband in Indian country. And so that, plus being able to afford broadband technology, as we just talked about, because the unemployment rate right now is a little high in Indian country just because government has slashed certain things. Tribal government is trying to minimize everything. So folks just don't have the jobs that they had. I mean, earlier this year, I was working, for my tribe up in Canada. Well, that contract didn't get extended due to COVID-19. So I had to take another position. And so I bounced back. So literally, I have lived the nightmares of COVID-19 and been able to come out of it in a good way. And
watch for the book next year, right?
Watch for that next year.
All right. Let's move on to number 3. How about that? That way we can be sure to get all these questions in, because there's some good ones. So for those in the audience who want to work with tribal communities and help address these barriers, what are some common misunderstandings or misconceptions in regards to working with tribes and the barriers that they face in technology? Can y'all provide some clarity on that? So people that want to come in and help the tribe, what are some misunderstandings they need to know, and the barriers that we face with technology issues? How do we help them do that? What kind of information can we provide?
So, Maria, I'm very fortunate now that I no longer work for the federal government. 5 years ago, the tribal leaders reappointed me to chair a couple of intertribal government committees. I have the honor of chairing the Economic, Finance, and Community Development Committee, as well as the Technology and Telecommunications Subcommittee of the National Congress of American Indians. And we, the largest and oldest intertribal government body in the United States, and we do a lot of work with external entities who want to work with tribes. And I would say the number one piece of advice I would have for somebody who wants to get to know Indian country and work with tribes is no one size fits all. As different as the countries on the face of the globe, tribes in the United States and Canada are very, very different, one nation to another. Everything from location, history, geopolitical situation, demographics. So if one wants to approach a tribe and work with them on a technology solution or a technology application or another mission that utilizes technology, do not assume that what works in one place will work in another. Think of the opportunity as presenting a toolkit that you could choose from and tribes could choose from to apply in different contexts. That I think is the best 50,000-foot view. The other that I think is probably the 5'11" view is have patience.
A lot of patience and respect for culture is huge on that, but I'm also going to throw in sovereignty.
Oh yeah.
That they fully have to understand tribal sovereignty to even be able to get in the door, honestly, because there's some things that technology companies or any company, any vendor may have us want to get us on this program and have us sign up, but they don't realize how it could affect our sovereignty. So that you have to have consideration of that.
There are implications in having that patience and dealing with sovereignty as well. Certain tribes do not operate the way that the United States does. They share decision making much more, or they want to see consensus building. So sometimes if you have something that needs legislation or activity of the tribal legislatures and the tribal administration, that might take a while to get an answer because they really want to chew it down to the bone and make sure that as they're exercising their sovereignty, that they're not going to come back, that everybody's on board or everybody gets a chance to review. You know, oh, that the two parties in our Congress could spend some time talking like that. But
No
but sometimes that means you get a little frustrated because it takes a while.
Yeah. And we ask our cousins. We ask our cousins to see how they've handled it also. So I think there's a lot of understanding how the tribal and understanding not just with the sovereignty, but I think it helps to go in and look at the government structure of the tribes, because a lot of people don't understand. We do have constitutions. We have stuff that we have to go by when we do business. So we do business with the federal government one-on-one. I mean, we're equal. So I think we're equal. Vote for me.
We are.
Yeah,
We are.
absolutely.
Yeah, the
So
United
Jacob,
States,
did you have any input on that question?
I was just gonna say the approach. You know, from if you're an outsider coming in to approach tribal government for business, economic development, you know, tech, data, whatever it may be, I think just understanding and having that cultural sensitivity training when you're approaching these indigenous communities, but also the business model that you're bringing in so that it's shared wealth for the community citizens, giving them a chance to get involved, as well as the nation, the tribal nation as well. So just your approach and that business model of shared wealth, I think, is the only thing that I can add.
And I think this takes us right into the next question too. It's a great segue because it says, what are some recommendations around partnerships with tribal communities from the tech or within the tech world? And basically from our experience, what we think would be the best to address these barriers. And I think we just covered that. Do you guys have anything else that you wouldn't want to add to that?
You know, I would just underscore what Jacob said about being transparent. Indian country, many tribes have historically been taken advantage of, and Indian country is littered with economic development projects or something that was going to improve life and didn't, whether it's, you know, a failed gas service station or bottling plant or some sort of IT solution. But being explicit about the approach, about your structure, about your ownership, about how you're funded, being explicit about expectations and interest. Indian country is about so many tribes want to build long-lasting relationships. It is one of the core values of American Indian people, that to build relations and relatives and extended relations. And it is a place where trust can be a little hard to build, but once you build it, it'll last forever, and it can be very easy to lose. So, yeah.
I feel like you've read one of my papers, because that was the main thing. I always talked about trust is number one, and you have to build relationships. You don't just go in like a guns blazing. Basically, you have to go in as a partnership. So
I've probably lived one of your papers.
Yeah, probably so. Very good. All right, so let's go on. We have just about 15 minutes left. So let's tackle these last questions here. So what are the best approaches that the federal government and organizations should take when approaching tribes to collaborate? And I know that we have more tribal leaders in Congress right now than we've had at one time.
Ever.
So yeah, so I mean, that's great. Some of them are from Oklahoma, so I will brag about that. So what is the best way for the federal government and organizations to approach the tribes for collaboration?
So this is definitely where I want to show, in the
Respect.
context of the last question and this question, I want to show my last couple slides, my last substantive slide. And it is, I think it is understanding not just the relationship between the federal government and the obligations of the federal government to tribal nations, but also understanding the complexity of having to piece together different federal programs to make things in any country really work at a societal level. So hopefully you can see.
Yeah, we can see it. And I would say where you're going, I think that something I would add there is the tribal set aside for your federal funding. Do a tribal set aside. And the COPS program through the Department of Justice is a great example of that.
Yeah, so I think a little bit of the answer here has to be a little bit of an explanation of another aspect of Indian country. And it is the challenge of having to develop an economy in an environment where we don't have the practical realities that other communities have. So reservations are exactly what they sound like. They are land that is occupied by tribes, but tribes do not hold title to that land. Title to that land is vested in the United States. So it's reserved for tribal use. So if you and I were trying to start a small business, we would probably, and we wanted to get collateral on a bank loan to start our small business, what would we use? We would use our personal assets, our cars, or maybe our mortgage or something. It's a very, very difficult thing for Indian country to do. There isn't collateral lying around. We can't collateralize the land. As a practical reality also, we cannot tax. Although we have the right and the ability, like other local governments, we can't, we won't levy a tax on top of the federal and the state governments. So, but you see tribal governments who have all of the missions that are represented on this slide. And this slide also talks about, the relative uses of broadband for all of that. So to fill in that last idea, New York City is not our banking capital. Washington, D.C. is our banking capital, because part of the deal of these contracts, these treaties, was that we get services, we get opportunities, a special relationship with the federal government to help us, to help educate us, take care of us, help us grow and develop and reacquire our own abilities. And right now, if you want to do something that is holistic in a community, you got to go to HHS, you got to go to the Department of Commerce, you got to go to the USDA, you got to go to the FCC, you got to go to the Department of Interior. So what the best approach would be more of a government, in my opinion, and I've worked on both sides of it, more of a government to government development of programs that involve all of these holistic needs.
I think that I totally agree with you. More of a government to government, a respect and a trust for each other, and to work together to get these needs met. I agree. Jacob, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Ha! Go fight them there, Jeff.
Yeah, if we get that, this is the speed we're going to be moving
That's
at
the
now.
speed, light speed. That's right.
I was just going to say the exact same thing. Canada, we say nation to nation. Down here, we say government to government. So making sure that you're having those truth and reconciliation conversations at that government or that nation level, so that we know what's happened, but also how to reconcile and move forward with partnering with federal government agencies or federal government period. So nation to nation relationships is at the forefront for sure.
Absolutely. So Jeff, can you stop your screen share? We can get.
Yes, I will.
That's great. I love that. I love that slide. That's a good one. All right, let's tackle this other question. Then I think at the end we have one specifically directed towards Jeff. So let's go with this one. Is there such a thing as a tribal-centric solution for bridging the digital divide? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, there is. There really is. And you mentioned a couple of members of Congress earlier, and there is some pending legislation in Congress that would make it a potential reality. I'd like to go back to a point in the conversation early on where I mentioned that we've largely devolved the responsibility to private or public corporations to deploy services across the United States, and the federal government through fees on our bills has subsidized these companies. And there are just simply certain places in the United States where you cannot force companies to go, and that a level of artificial competition causes those extremely high costs. And it's related to what I was saying earlier about trying to target population densities. Rather than targeting population densities, if we targeted these jurisdictions and we looked at the myriad needs and uses of technology, and rather than causing those to be divided up and looking at competitive entry, if we actually put money towards, and by we, I mean the United States and tribal nations, private investors, towards a robust solution, and then drove all of the users towards that solution. The concept is called demand aggregation. And it's aggregating all the users together to try to build the business model for the best and highest use So we've done that here in a few places to get fiber into communities that would never have it. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The greater metropolitan area of Albuquerque, New Mexico is almost 1 million people. And that is not enough people, not enough relative wealth in Albuquerque here to have fiber to the home offerings by the local telcos. Yet there are certain Indian tribes in New Mexico who have leveraged federal financing, aggregated their demand, and have been able to bring fiber to their communities. So I do think it's recognizing that, you know, in places where federal programs have worked, they've worked really well, but now, you know, almost 30 years after the term digital divide was coined, what we've created is a more recalcitrant form of the digital divide where those programs don't work. So we need a break with that. We need to recognize that we need new buckets, new authorities. So in some of what's been proposed on Capitol Hill, there is a Digital Reservations Act that would create new licensing opportunities for spectrum for tribal nations, and a new tribal broadband fund dedicated at the FCC that targets funding directly to tribal lands. Some of that could be the tribe itself. There are many tribes that don't want to create their own telcos. However, what they want to do is find one and make sure that that one's spending the money well, work with the federal government as a federal partner to get the service out there. That sounds kind of heretical to folks who have lived in the current regulatory environment, but
I think we have to make it work. I think we have to have that connection, and I think that is a solution, is getting everybody on the same page.
The basic point is that the tribal nation has authority and jurisdiction, as you said earlier, sovereignty over all of those myriad needs. And if we aggregate all of that demand rather than trying to artificially parse it out, that's putting the tribe in the center of the solution, a tribal centric solution. So,
yeah, it sure is. So I think that we have just enough time left for them to come on and they can give us that last question. You ready for that, Dominica?
Hey everyone, I really enjoyed listening. Hi. So this last question directed a little bit more to Jeff, but if the rest can answer, that's great too. So we had a few questions from the audience. What would you say to people who ask if new satellites would help bridge the digital divide for Indian country? Is this already in conversations? Jeff, during your time at FCC, has this ever been brought up? What are your thoughts?
So yeah, I did a bunch of work when I was at the FCC with the satellite division. I think one of the major challenges in satellite is the basic choke points on the amount of data that these birds can carry. And you know, there's a lot of marketing out there right now about low Earth orbit satellites. I love that line from that movie, just show me the money. Let's just see the data tests. I'm hopeful, but I think we're always going to need terrestrial services. You know, a personal goal from my career and a lot of people that I work with is to see tribal lands have service offerings that are everything else that somebody has in town. So satellite definitely has its place in that panoply. I'm not going to put it down, but I don't think it can be the only backbone out there, just being honest.
I don't think it should be. I think there should always be options. What do you have, Jacob? Did you have some input on that?
No, I was going to say Jeff basically hit, you know, the nail over the head with the hammer. He's directly on point with that. So,
yeah.
So what?
You know, I think one thing I think that people don't understand, Maria, in part of the relative value of satellite technology, wireless and wireline technology, is that you know, these little supercomputers that we carry in our pockets and our purses, in order for somebody to get high-speed broadband wireless to your phone, one really has to understand the relationship between the spectrum, the wireless frequencies, power to those towers that are sitting out there, and fiber to them to carry that capacity. So when I say choke points in backhaul, you can talk to folks in, I'm sure, near Calgary or parts of Alaska that say, you know, when the kids get home from school and everybody gets on that satellite service, the network flows because of the capacity of the bird of itself, of the satellite itself. So
it's very true. Hey, so let's go back to the question that we were talking about. Is there such thing as tribal-centric solutions to help bridge the digital divide? Jacob, what do you think about that? And what does it look like to create that bridge?
I agree with what Jeff said, but I also am like a little more of like one size does not fit all type of way. It's going to be different for the tribe, which is next to the urban setting versus the tribe that's in the rural setting. And if we put a blanket over everything, it's kind of like there's going to be some rocky points there. So I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, I kind of do, but I would just say that there are resources that need to be addressed, such as like education and how to get access to broadband and having more more technical support from agencies, and bottom line, just consultation and dialogue with tribal governments to understand their needs and cater the solutions to that. So those are some of the things that I can kind of chime in there a little bit, if that makes a little bit more sense.
So we just received another question too, and it says, how has lack of broadband impacted teaching in our communities? I mean, that is a loaded question, because to me, it's been paramount.
Well, look what just happened earlier. Look what just happened earlier. I cut out and we're on a live thing. So that's definitely a barrier.
And especially right now with so much remote learning going on. I know my daughter's school today just got locked down because of cases. So we're going back to distance learning, and heaven forbid we all need to be on at the same time.
It's, my greatest fear for a long time was that there might be some huge fire in some place like Northern California, and it would isolate a group of tribes or a tribe, and the lack of broadband would be, would become front page news. My worst fear, much worse, the pandemic is much worse. I think the potential is we have a generation of young American Indians who are going to miss out on a year of true education. I mean, it's different. My wife and I have a couple of daughters who are now teenagers, and they're pretty tech savvy, right? They're actually pretty resilient, and they kind of laugh at their dad, because even though I've been involved in technology, I'm not a social networker like they are. But I work with some folks whose kids are just a little bit younger, who are in, third, second, first grade, at a point in time where that human interaction, keeping the attention of a child, is very, that's a large part of being an elementary school teacher. And with broadband that's shaky, with communities that are not necessarily, they don't have all the great technology in their communities, not just the access, but their own devices, it's a bad situation.
It is, and I think that we can all work together to help come up with solutions to make it better. So that actually ends our time. Can you believe it went by so fast? I enjoyed this, being with you guys.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all of your time. I think I speak on behalf of the entire audience, and we are just like, wow, we have learned so much, and you guys have been so generous with your knowledge and candidness. So that wraps up this panel. Thank you again. I'm sure all the rest of the audience would love to know more about how they can support the work that you guys are doing. So please, those in the audience, if you have questions for these folks, let us know and we'll pass it back on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Mado.
Well, thank you so much, Maria, Jacob, and Jeffrey, for an amazing panel. We talked all day about the fact that tech for good efforts have to be anchored on listening to the users, and building tech for Native communities certainly has to take into account the digital divide issues, address the connectivity and critical infrastructure challenges that you posed during your discussion, and also acknowledge the reality of broadband on tribal lands today. So just by sharing your stories and creating this space to have a really candid conversation is the best way that we can close out day one of Top Demo Week. So we're so grateful for your time today, your insights and expertise, and certainly your participation in the Opportunity Project. So today was jam-packed first day. So we dove into 4 natural environment issues, We featured 19 impressive new tools from this year's sprints, and we heard from community experts that helped shape these products on their potential impact, as well as university students. And of course, we hope you're able to listen in on conversations around technology, data, and partnerships for tribal communities. So believe it or not, there is even more coming up tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow is day 2 of Top Demo Week, and we'll focus on the built environment challenges, featuring dozens of speakers, nearly 20 additional more tech products, the official launch of the Top X Toolkit for federal agencies, and pro tips and lessons learned from key government innovation programs, as well as a fireside chat between Census Deputy Director Ron Jarman and Amazon Chief Economist Pat Bajari. So be sure to tune in and join at 12 p.m. Eastern to catch the opening keynote from HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson. And now please join us for a social media storm to close out day 1 of the Opportunity Project. Get your phones out and head over to your social media platform of choice and post something that you learned today. Post a key takeaway. You can use the hashtag Opportunity Project and tag us at US Census Bureau. And then join us for an open, optional networking session in our platform, Hopin, to get to know each other better and network a little bit this evening. So thank you, and see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern for another exciting day. We hope you will join us. Thank you so much for joining today.